And it's always follow.
Welcome into Tiger Talks Wrestling. I am your host, Tony. We are here for a very special mini-series called Best in the Yard Retrospective. And today, as we talk about Best in the Yard 1, I have with me a guy who is very essential to the very first Best in the Yard. That would be Mr. Big Time Mike. Welcome to the show, man.
Oh, man, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I know it's been a long time, and it's like I was telling Tony at the top of the show before we got on. I made him jump through so many hoops to do this, and it's my fault because my schedule's ridiculous. But I'm so happy you had me on. I'm so happy to talk about this. Honestly, I forgot about half of that stuff that happened when I watched the intro. That's great. Who did that? Was that Mr. Awesome that did the intro?
That was Mr. Awesome.
Kudos to him because that's freaking great, man. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. But thank you for having me on here. I'm excited for the show.
Well, glad to have you on. Like I was telling you before we jumped on, I couldn't figure out anybody else that would have been better to put in this spot with as big as a star as you were at that time. In the community, and as much as you had to do with Best in the Yard 1, who else could I pick?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can think of a few more, but I really do appreciate the sentiment, and it was a fun ride, man. It seems like it was like I was telling you earlier. It seems like it's been so long ago, but it really hasn't been that long. But man, it's so fun to look back at that time, and I'm excited to kind of take a trip down memory lane with you. I was actually I spoke with Drew Hood. Kevin Shaw, and I've been trying to get in touch with Cam, but I can't get in touch with him. I've talked to them a few weeks back, and I hadn't spoken to them in like 6 months, and it's like we just picked off right where we left off. So I mean, I cherish those memories, and I cherish those guys because I'll always carry that with me forever.
Right. Yeah, I know. I was trying to get a hold of Cam there for a little while too, and he's not an easy guy to get a hold of.
No, he's. See, you think my schedule's bad? His schedule's even worse because he's like. He goes from can to cane. Like I've never seen a guy that just – and even before he was doing independent wrestling, like when we would go – so and this is interesting because we were talking about this kind of a little bit earlier about the Hangouts doesn't go through YouTube anymore. Well, we would sit on Hangouts for like, all night long and just talk wrestling. Right? We were doing like Zoom calls before there was even like COVID, like before there was quarantine stuff. Right. And we would sit and talk and literally he would be like, hey, Mike, got to go. I have to be at work in 30 minutes. And it's like 5 a.m. Right. And this is, 6, almost 7 years ago, he's been doing this. Right. And he does this all the time. So that just tells you, I mean, that guy's a hard worker, one of the hardest working guys I've ever met. And you can take wrestling out of it. The guy's he's just got the drive to do whatever his goals are. He's going to fix them. So that's one thing I really appreciate about that era, that part of my life is that I got to meet some other hardworking individuals that really enjoyed it. And not just because, the physical aspect, but also like when we talk about it, like the entertainment aspect and the storytelling. And we just got to bond over the fact that, now wrestling's a big thing, but when I was growing up, being a wrestling fan wasn't cool. Right. If you were a wrestling fan, people made fun of you and you didn't have very many friends. You were kind of an outcast. So it was great to find that group of guys that we really meshed together with.
So I will mention this. I was talking to Mr. Awesome about a week or so ago. It's been 3.5 years since I had you on this program.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's been a while, man.
I feel like it's been that long, but it has.
Yeah.
We got a couple comments in the comment section, so I'll get to those before we jump in to watching some of the highlights, and we're going to go through some of those promos that you guys cut during Best in the Yard 1 as well. Ron John here with the channel of 3 generations, NFW, the current generation, APW, the former, HBTW. Aaron Jones says, God bless, do I miss Mike? And Yankee the Difference Maker says, is that my man's BTM? Much love, big dog.
It is. Oh, man, I love those guys. Aaron, Charles, I hate that I put his shoot name out there, but Charles Price, great guy. I was literally messaging him today because he messaged me on Snapchat, and I hadn't spoken to him in 2 years. And like I said, it's just like we picked up where we left off. He's a great guy. I'm excited they're actually doing something, some BYW, because him and I had talked. And then, of course, this is kind of, I guess we're skipping ahead, but after I had gotten done with BYW, I still wanted to be involved in some way because I missed it so much. I just was never able to because of my school schedule and trying to start my career. And we were going to do some sort of character thing, because I don't know how long ago it's been, but he was doing those really vague promos where he was trying to find himself. And we were going to try and tie it into something with me. We had talked about it. I don't think it was ever in the plan, but it was just interesting. I thought about that just then. He's a great, really creative guy, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do. Aaron Jones, awesome dude. Me and him cut up. My God, and I guess we'll talk about it, but all 4 best in the yards and even some of the crossovers, me and him, or him and I, would cut up for hours and hours, and we would just laugh till we about near pee on ourselves. I mean, he's just a great dude. He's an awesome guy. And Yankee, even though I didn't spend much time with Yankee, I did get to see him for a couple best in the yards. I miss that guy. I love that dude to death. He's an amazing dude. And I haven't really been keeping up with wrestling after I got out, just because I've been so busy. But I know he's successful because he's another one of those guys, man. He just works so hard, man, and you don't find that. I mean, it's just the world we live in today doesn't favor hard work. We're always, everything we need is right now. No, he's one of those guys that puts in the work, and he's not afraid to tell anybody he works hard, because he does. So kudos to him just for being a hardworking person, man.
Right. Yankee says, much love, big man.
Same to you, brother.
So, I'm going to dive in here. Get going with some of these promos. I'm just going to skip around a little bit throughout the show. Try to keep it close to on tap.
Okay.
Oh, give me one moment. Got something I got to do first. So, Aaron Jones says, Mike going to make me cry, LOL. So why don't you take us back before I get into that, since there's something I got to do real quick. Take us back to what it was like for you guys to first get into motion, I guess you could say, or start to talk about bringing together this best in the yard and what it took to get everybody together that was part of this.
Yeah, so I guess if you really want to boil it down to who was the one that brought everyone together, I mean, you could say like it was the VTW guys, it was Drew, but it's Cam. I mean, Cameron Jackson's at the center of this. So 2014, Cam messages me, or I don't remember how we found each other on Twitter. We followed each other. We were a fan of each other's product, but he messaged me and we got on a hangout one night, and man, we just talked for hours like we were known each other our whole lives. And I did the Backyard Wrestling Fix with Anonymous, I believe. I think it was Anonymous and I on there. And after that, man, we just sat and talked. We just continued to stay in contact with each other. And I had kind of chatted with Drew Hood. And I think this was around the time that KJ or Cage had done his crossover with BEW. And, KJ and I we were like friends. We went to high school together, and he's another one of those guys, a great friend of mine. If I called him now, he would help me with anything I needed. He's just an awesome dude. But I wasn't involved in the BEW crossover. It just worked out that way. So I was really thinking about getting out of wrestling because I had just started college. And I get on a hangout one night with Cam, and Cam says, "Hey, Mike, I have a proposition for you." And I was like, "Sure. What's up?" He said, so we're doing this big show, Best in the Yard. Of course, we hadn't had a name for it. Actually, famously, Corey Graves, we had the original Best in the Yard group chat. He decided he wanted to call Best in the Yard Backyard Wrestling Extravaganza, I think is a joke, right? And that was a joke for a long time, that it was the Backyard Wrestling Extravaganza. And someone said, well, it should be called Best in the Yard, right? And then the name just stuck. But one night I want to hang out with Cam, and he says, "Hey, Mike, we're doing this big show in the summer. We don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm thinking that it would be great if you wrestled Drew Hood." And I didn't really know Drew. I'd talked to him. He was a great guy. I didn't really wasn't friendly with him. I mean, we were cordial, but I just didn't really know him. So I was like, absolutely, yeah. And I watched his stuff, and I had seen his stuff before. And this was he was doing his really getting his run deep in VTW at early 2015. And so I was like, yeah, this is like big man fight. But I said the one thing that I've never seen Drew do is I hadn't seen Drew really get physical with somebody, right? And so I said the only one thing we can do about this, I said, one, we have to make this personal, because I'm not on KBW, right? I don't have programming. The only way I keep myself relevant is through promos. I said, and two, we've got to make sure that this is a hard-hitting physical match, right? And then, of course, then it was the idea, well, why don't we just make it first, right? So set the tone. So our whole goal for that entire deal was, let's just make it something different like no one else has seen. But I kind of strayed away from your question, but back to it. It was really Cam, getting Drew and I on the same page and saying, hey, how about we do this? And then Drew and I clicked. And then, of course, Cam, Drew, and I came like three compadres. We were, inseparable. And then we get connected with the VTW guys, with Tyler and Zach and Aaron and Nick, right? We get connected with all those guys. And then, of course, the UWE guys are now all in this chat with Everett and Ricky and Antonio, right? And TJ. And then we get connected with Charles. And it was Corey who we got connected with first because, Drew did the crossover with Charles. But Charles had kind of taken a step back from backyard wrestling. He's also – Charles and I are around the same age, so we went through college graduated around the same time link. So he was in college as well, and he had kind of taken a step back from backyard wrestling. But Corey was really hard in it, right? So the idea was if we get all these VTW guys and Corey, and I don't remember why Charles wasn't able to come or something happened, but if we can get everyone at the same place at the same time, maybe it'll happen. I'm going to be honest with you, dude. We didn't think it was going to happen. Like, we really didn't think it was going to happen until the day before, right? Because there's a lot of these crossover events, and you've done a lot of these podcasts, so you know that sometimes people cancel like the day before. I've done it before where I just can't go, and I said, look, man, I'm sorry, I can't get off work. I don't have the money. I just can't go. And the card changes drastically. But what was so special about this is that we all decided, hey, we're going to meet up in Claremont, North Carolina at this date. We got in our cars and we drove our butts all the way to in my case, 8 hours, almost 9. Right, I rented a car. The first time I'd ever rented a car. Been on a road trip. I'd driven long distances, but never that length.
Right. And
I'm telling you, and you can ask any of those other guys. The feeling of pulling up in Claremont, North Carolina in June of 2015, I've felt great feelings before, right? Mm-hmm. I'm getting married in December. I've won state championships in football, right? I felt like a great warm feeling, but I've never felt something like that before. It's just a different level of excitement, right? We're really going to do this. And I'm telling you, that whole weekend was like a blur. And when it was over, we were just like, oh, is it seriously going to end? Like it's a dream. So honestly, man, for it to come together, it literally was everyone at the right place at the right time. And just, Cam and the VTW guys and Corey, us all being able to mesh together with the fact that we love wrestling and we want to, bring something different. Right.
It's a success. The NFW channel, Ron John mentions from Jason Walker, my mom said no. So they couldn't be there.
Oh, man. Oh, I do remember that now. Yeah, I do remember that.
So if you're not too familiar, my co-host, Mr. Awesome, a little bit late here, but is now joining us.
I'm always late for something, aren't I?
Yeah.
Hey, that's okay. I'm late sometimes too.
Well, ain't that some shit?
Well, thank you for that awesome video package. I was telling Tony at the top of the show that was an awesome job, man. I completely forgot about some of that stuff, but thank you. That was an awesome job, dude.
Hearing that theme song again got you going, didn't it? You were like, man, I'm a 2K pre-order bonus now.
Yeah, man, I haven't heard that song in so long. It's been, literally, it's probably been since I'd say probably about 2 years since I've heard that song. Right, and Cameron Jackson was the one that created that song. He dubbed it up, everything. He did a great job with it.
Yeah, he did. All right, you want to get any questions in there, Mr. Awesome, before I get going?
I guess I could address that first. When you just see that out of nowhere, after how long you've been gone now, you just see that video on Tony's channel. You just hear, and it's always big time, baby, and then you just see it. And it brings you back to that time. What the hell is Big Time Mike? It shows you what Big Time Mike is. And it did not quite show the best in the yard clips because that's kind of what the point of this show is. What comes to your mind when it comes to best in the yard? And I believe you've been addressing some of that, but we'll definitely get into more of it for sure.
Well, I'm just going to tell you, and that's like I told Tony, from us coming, all of us, the core, the original Best in the Yard guys, when we came up with the idea to do this show, right, and we all decided that Claremont, was kind of a midway for everybody. Cam and them coming from Jersey and Long Island, Corey coming from Altoona, Drew coming from Cary, and I'm coming from, Mobile, right? It's kind of like the central point where we can all meet. I'd honestly forgotten about some of that stuff. I mean, and like when I watch it, it makes my heart pump because I get excited about it, and I'm like, man, I missed. That's a point in my life that I'm never gonna forget, and I know that like I can never go back there. Like I'll never do it again because I just can't. Right with what I do now, but I'll never forget it because it's molded me and made me. I mean, honestly, into the man I am today. Right, and of course, I was an adult when I did it. Right, but it made me into the person I am today. Right, I mean that. Everyone has got that point in time. And I think this is what's been interesting about the Big Time Mike character. And I don't think many people picked up on this, right? I started in BYW as kind of this anti-hero that pushed back against KBW. I ended with this guy that was so just disgusted with the way he had lived his career and his life that he felt like he had to have his biggest nemesis, Rick Rios, kind of put him down. Right, when he shouldn't have been wrestling, he was clearly out of shape. Right, he was clearly, mentally not in the right place. Right, but the way he goes out like on his sword. Right, he gets his hands cuffed to his head and gets a chair shot to the head that knocks him out. Right, I mean he goes out like like an old Western movie. And I think what people don't understand about the character is like that's part of my life I had to shut off. I had to go away from because I was moving into another phase in my life. And then when I watch it again, man, it's like it all comes rushing back in one big feeling.
Nice. So we got a Gunshot in the comment section says, "Hey, how's everybody doing?"
Doing well, man. I'm happy to be here.
Okay. So let's go back and we're going to start with the very beginning of the Best in the Yard show here. Once it loads up. I forgot there's like a little delay at the beginning of it before it starts.
We streamed this. We streamed the dreaded Google Hangout stream.
Yep.
That one might have been Wirecast, and we know how much everybody loves Wirecast.
Yeah. And let me tell you this. Let me. This is just a quick note. I cannot tell you how many times Everett Creed, and I love Everett Creed to death. Again, one of those guys I feel like I could just pick up, and one of those guys will be invited to my wedding. I miss that guy. I miss talking to that guy. That guy works so damn hard trying to get these shows streamed and trying to get them edited and getting commentary. He works so hard, and I'll always remember I've never seen Everett mad like in a wrestling show, but I've never seen him more pissed off when Wirecast. I think we actually had to move the stream date for Best in the Yard, or one of the shows we had to, because Wirecast wasn't working. And I've never seen Everett so angry in my life. It was, and I just think it's funny because Everett. Everett's a cool, calm, collected guy, but I've never seen Everett more angry in my life than when Wirestream wasn't working for him. But anyway, I just thought about that because we were talking about Hangouts and streaming.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I think we got it all set up here. Well, now if we can get the mic working. There we go.
Seems to be an epidemic arising, and it started with one true good. You see, in BYW in general, there's always been ass kissing, button heads, been everything. But as a good friend of mine, Mr. Creed, figured out that instead of butting heads, we seem to be butting heads, if you get what I'm saying. So I have to say this. For all the naysayers of Best in the Yard, I dare you, I challenge you, I demand you. If you can follow that, and you can put on my motherfucking shoes and walk 1 mile in my shoes, I am begging you, I am on my knees in front of God himself. I'm telling you, please. And if not, shut your mouth and quit trying to talk that trash. This is Best in the Yard, not Worst on the Mattress. This isn't Dawn of Destiny 2. This is Best in the fucking Yard. This is Best in the Yard. You got Cameron Jackson, Everett Creed, Dirty DeChico, Big Time White, Anonymous, Corey Graves. You got all these people. And yet we still got more motherfucking bitches bitching and crying and moaning about everything. Let me finish. Hold on, let me finish first. So, if you can please follow that and stop butting heads, be a man and step up. I beg of you, please do it. And if you don't, I'm still going to drop elbows through suplexes, lock in the BTA, and say, "It's big time, baby!" Now, what do you want?
Forgot about you.
You know, that was someone bought that. Ah, 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 wow, wanna know something big time? Yeah, I know something. Oh, we're gonna push big time Mike. Damn right. Well, I'm gonna push every creed, and I'm gonna push big time Mike again. That's fine, because Tyler Storm is a dead man that is not gonna answer the count of 10. Wait, what was that? How did that saying go? Yeah, 5 days to live and 10 seconds to die. 10 seconds to die, dude. I'm gonna give you 10 seconds to get out of my face before I break your ankle, whoop your ass, and talk trash while I do it. So, begin it for you, Maestro. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Best in the yard. You're much best in the yard. Yeah, best in the yard. All right, tomorrow, I'm ready. The supremacy is now shut your mouth, please, and it will be wait for it. Wait for it. Big time, baby. Wait for it one more time. Boom, bitch. And now.
I forgot about that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was an epic way to start off the original Best in the Yard, that's for sure. Follow that. We would know would come Follow That Crew a year later. Is that something off of that promo, do you think? Or is that just random happenstance?
I don't know. I think it's like happenstance or destiny. I don't know. We had Cam and Drew and I from our first meeting, we've always been really close. Ever since the first night, we kind of like all got to hang out, and after that, we just consistently just continued to talk to each other and message each other. And that's kind of something that we all said. We said that the whole goal of Best in the Yard, and of course, I think we threw a jab at Myron and their federation. They were doing like their own Best in the Yard show. I don't remember. There was some kind of drama. There was always like BYW drama, which that's one of my least favorite things about that point in time in my life. But that doesn't make it any less of an event. But I think we had always just said, if so and so can follow that, then they deserve to be on top of the card, or they deserve to be the main event, or they deserve to be the champion, right? So that's just something that we always said. And I honestly, I tell you where I got it from. I think I got it. I was listening to an old, I used to listen to wrestling podcasts before they were wrestling podcasts. They were just shoot interviews. And I think I heard Kevin Nash say it in a wrestling interview or shoot interview about some match he had in WCW. And he said, well, if they think they can get paid more, then just follow that and show me you can get paid more. Right. So I kind of always had that attitude where, well, if you think you're better, that's fine. That's great. I hope you are. But, you're going to have to follow me. So the best is going to rise to the top. And I guess that's really like the negative side coming out. But that was kind of the attitude you had to have, especially when you're around, great athletes and guys that can perform and guys and to a degree, the guys that kind of did the same shtick, or not really the same shtick, but kind of had the same style. You have to have some way to stand out. So that the whole follow that moniker, that was just kind of like my attitude as big time. Like, well, I may not be able to do the fancy wrestling moves, but I'll be damned if I don't go out there and put on a show, right? And people aren't happy or excited whenever they see my music or hear my name, right? So that's kind of where that came from. And then we decided one night when we were going to do the FTC, what we were going to call it. And we said, well, let's just call it the Follow That Crew because we want everyone to follow that. We keep saying that. Why don't we just keep it as a moniker? So I guess it's destiny. It had to happen since we said it the first Best in the Yard.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to play that too when we get to it. Cut a little promo afterwards. That's the start of the show. Mr. Osman, you want to throw anything in there before I get into clips from the first match?
Well, to me, the whole follow that thing, it could be seen as foreshadowing for what's going to happen. But that could be said for a lot of this because Best in the Yard 1 was really a foreshadowing of what nobody really expected because, and I've told this to guys like Navon, I've said when he was asking for throwbacks to be put on the NUW channel, it's like he wasn't at that one, but he could tell, and this is something I had to explain to him. It's like crossovers were not a thing yet. Crossover events like that, where it had a whole bunch of story involved, like people were not expecting there to be a second one because they weren't even expecting a first one. It just happened. It just happened, and people were in the moment, and that's what you could tell the most about Best in the Yard 1. That it was more about the experience and people just enjoying themselves in the moment, for real.
No, absolutely. It was that, and that's what Best in the Yard. If you had to wrap it up to one idea, was just being in the moment, right? And I think, and this happened to a lot of the Best in the Yards after that. It kind of got away from. I mean, of course, there was. I would say Best in the Yard 2 and 3. There was we're living in the moment, but there was nothing like Best in the Yard 1 because we had never done it before. And then, like you said, no one expected it because they'd never had anything like that. Of course, they've had crossovers, right, with CCW and VTW, and of course, like Drew going up to APW before it was APW HBTW with Jason Walker. But there was never something on that scale that spent. I mean, we spent months building these stories up with promos and interrupting matches and things like that. And I think we did. I'm sure there's other feds that have done that, and I'm not saying that we're the one shining light on under the sun, but I think that what we did, at least in our little niche in the community, had never been seen before. And of course, after Best in the Yard, then we're like hitting off. We're having like crossovers every other month, right? We had after Best in the Yard, we had the crossover, or at least the Cam and the some of the APW guys had one with what was the name of that show with Anonymous? God, Clash of the Yard.
Yep.
Yeah, Clash of the Yard. Then in the fall we had the Halloween Hangover. We filmed Halloween Hangover, Thanksgiving Thunder, and a few Vindications in the fall. And then that following spring we had WrestleCon. Then after that we had Best in the Yard again. Then we did another filming. So like it was almost like it now is just like assumed, right? After Best in the Yard, we have to do this again, not just because we love wrestling, but because we love the experience of like hanging out. I mean, you got to think, man, it's like 12, 13 guys sleeping in a non-air conditioning tin building in the middle of June in North Carolina, right? So we're not like comfortable, but it's almost like and of course the WrestleCon trip was really like living life on the road as a wrestler because we were like literally 8 guys crammed in 2 hotel rooms. No, it was like 8 guys in 1 hotel room. I mean, that was the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my life, but we did it because we loved what we did, and it was just so much fun to be around each other and do that. And people looked at us like we were crazy. Like, why would you do that? Well, you don't really understand because you're not in it, right? Why? I mean, you can't. I mean, I can tell you all day long why I do it, right? And you can look at me like, really, that doesn't make any sense. There's no rational reason to it. When you get the bug, there's nothing you can do. This is what you want to do. This is what you do, right? It's just like people that enjoy water polo. I don't get it. I don't find anything interesting or fun about it, but it's what they love to do. And they spend hundreds of dollars to watch people play water polo. Well, I spent hundreds, almost thousands of dollars to wrestle with my friends, in the backyard scene right across the United States because it's what I love to do.
Right. Ron John mentions, quote, I might not be able to do the fancy wrestling moves. Reminds me of the gauntlet match for the APW title. Charles, Lou Thunderbaum, what? You can wrestle?
Yeah. Oh, man, that was hilarious. I believe that was after the Best in the Yard 2 filming. We did like some post-match stuff, and who was it? I think this is interesting because I know this guy's like he's becoming a very successful independent wrestler. So I drove for Best in the Yard 2. I drove from my house with who was I with? I think I might have been with somebody. I drove from my house with somebody. No, I might have been by myself. I can't remember. I drove from my house in Mobile or Daphne, which is the area I was living in, to Cary, North Carolina, which was 12 hours, a long, long way, right? In a Ford Expedition with no air conditioner, right? And then I left from Drew's house from Cary to Claremont is, I don't know, I think it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I rode because Jordan Oliver, that was his first Best in the Yard. Jordan Oliver rode with me from Cary to Claremont because I stayed with Drew like a couple days before because it was we're trying to make a vacation out of it because Cam was coming down with Antonio, Jordan Oliver, Navon, Yankee, right? They were all piled in. Maybe Yankee wasn't there. I think he was there. He wasn't part of 2, right? So Yankee wasn't there. I'm thinking of further on. But it was like I think Everett might have been with Cam in his car. But anyway, they all came to Cary, and we all like split up. And Drew took some guys, and Cam took some guys, and I took some guys. Well, two of the guys I took was Jordan Oliver and what's his name? Great guy. I feel terrible that Nick Kern. What was his wrestling name?
Jason Atlas.
Jason Atlas. God, I feel like a dick now because I like Nick. He's a very nice guy, and I haven't talked to him either. But it's one of those guys that we could just pick back up. But Nick and Jordan Oliver rode him in my expedition from Cary to Claremont, and I was talking to Jordan. I was just picking his brain because he's a way better wrestler than I am. I'm just saying, like, hey man, what do you like? What do you think I should do? And he's like, well, I don't think you're really like a technical wrestler, but like, what if you did like the tilt-a-whirl power bomb like Sami Zayn does? Like, you could do that. I was like, well, I'm not that athletic. He said, all you got to do is pick him up and spin him around, dude. It's not that hard. So, interestingly enough, right, in that match with Charles, I just called it. We didn't even talk about it. I picked him up and I was like, Blue Thunder Bomb. He's like, what? And I just picked him up and spun around. And Charles is like a child. And so I picked him up and like people were like, oh my God, he can wrestle because he did one move. Right. And it was just a shock and awe factor. And of course, like that's not even part of my shtick, but it was just kind of a shock and awe factor. So yeah, that's where that idea comes from.
Nice. Gunshot's saying a lot of stuff in there. Sorry, man, I'm not going to read everything off. But Jack Delta says, I can confirm that crossovers keep the community flowing and everything interesting. It's personally been my favorite thing about backyard wrestling. And he also mentions Cameron Jackson and Cage should have had a definite ending, completely ruined the program for me personally from Best in the Yard 3, which we'll dive into that show, or I will in a couple weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Get your opinions on some of those others before we're done tonight too. But all right. So we're gonna move.
Well, are we getting into the actual show now? Or are we just well, I mean, here we go. Big Time knows a thing or two about the opening of the show.
Yeah, I do. I do know a couple of things about it.
We're gonna see if things cooperate the way I want them to, first of all. You can hear a little bit in the background, but I'm not sure it's working. I was going to say, I know it's not actually loading up on the stream. So, 1 second.
BYW technical difficulties. There's always one.
There's always going to happen. They're always going to happen. I don't think I've ever been a part of a stream or show where there was not technical difficulties. There's always got to be something.
Always. All right. Let's see if I can get this up. There we go. Fingers crossed. This one will probably have to go full screen because it seemed like it was working better full screen than it was other people. Hey, now I have to get to some other comments too. So we got a very surprised feeling.
Finally, a match for his show.
They're all coming to see Big Time Mike because Big Time Mike is coming to Best in the Yard.
See, it's fools like this guy, Big Time Mike, that it really confuses me as to how he is loved and I'm not. I am so gracious to myself! Tell me that you're better than me, Mike. Tell me right now. He can't, because this is in the past. I wish I was as good as Drew Hood. I want to be CH and HD. Well, you can't. You know why? Because that's your life, you stupid son of batches.
Drew Hood, you're a damn good wrestler. I will give you that, but I tell you what, Big Time Mike is that much better. You're not going to take this seriously, Drew Hood. It's not going to be a quick 1, 2, 3. No, Drew Hood. It's going to be drop an elbow, throw a suplex. I'm going to lock in the BTA. And in unison with the entire BYW universe, we're going to say,
Stupid son of batches, you are a loser. A loser.
gonna break your ankle and talk trash while we do it, because Drew Hood, these people are the blood that makes me flow. They are the veins that keep these muscles going. They are the gas in the Big Time Express. They are Team Big Time.
Oh, hail the king of BYW. I am the king of all. Sorry, Mike. I'm sorry to have to do this to you, but at Best in the Yard, your career's over. And I will make sure of it.
You will realize what everybody else eventually realizes. That Drew Hood, it doesn't matter what day it is, what time, or what's on the line, I will deliver. And it's always
Stay overrated.
wait for it. Wait for it. Big Time, baby!
Okay, I'm gonna pause it right there. This thing's lagging like a son of a, you know what?
Yeah.
Keep the PG a little there.
Biatch.
I got it. Yeah, I got it a different way that we're gonna put up here in just a moment. To get to the highlights of the match once things cooperate with me here. So I apologize to anybody for that. I'll get into the comments real quick first before we get into the highlights of the match. Mr. J Joker Designs, who we're all familiar with, pops into the chat section.
Great guy. I haven't talked to him in forever. Man, he's such a great guy.
Holy shit, I see Mike. Holy fuck,
Oh, man,
that is my brother Mike there. And he says, miss making shirts for that man.
Hey, wait, what did he say? I didn't hear that second part.
He misses making shirts for you.
Yeah, he did. He used to make the best logos. And what's interesting about that Big Time Mike shirt, so I've had it made for Best in the Yard, and then like a dummy, I didn't pack it in my bag. So that's why I rocked the KBW blue one, because I didn't bring my actual Big Time Mike shirt that I made and paid money for. So, but every other shirt after that, J Joker Designs is the one that's making the logo, and he always did a great job. Even up to the last shirt I wore. I believe he made the last logo with Big Time Express, Best in the Yard 3. I think he made that one, but he always does a great job.
Yeah, that's for sure. Where was we at? Jack Delta says, is Big Time Mike ever going to wrestle again?
Unfortunately, no. I'm so sorry. I wish I could be more climactic with it, but no, I cannot. The career, I'm actually a teacher and a coach now, so I found what I've wanted to do since I was 16. I'd always wanted to wrestle, pursue that, but life has had other plans for me, and I missed that point of my life, and I'll always cherish it and appreciate the memories and moments, but it won't happen. Not unless, something drastically changes in my life, and that will never happen, unless, as they say, the good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. But unfortunately, no. So I'm sorry.
And his last point before we get into the highlights of the match that hopefully will air here fine this way. Another very good thing about the Best in the Yard series is they recognized what made a good card and put together people who'd make work beautifully.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is most of those guys, they had never worked before, right? I mean, the VTW guys had worked, but like the UWE guys, like Antonio and Diablo, Carlos, his real name, they had never worked before, and I was there to help film the Trailer Park Brawl, and that was one of my favorite matches of the night, right? And like Drew and I had never worked before, right? And of course we talked some stuff over, but we had such good chemistry that we just kind of rolled with it. And what happened, and we kind of knew each other and knew our movesets and did some studying. I like to call it, we did some film studying and looked at some matches that we had done to know kind of what our movesets were and everything. But it's interesting. It just tells you, like, chemistry goes a long way. You may not be the best athlete, you may not be the best worker, but if you got chemistry with a guy or gal, if you're a female wrestler, right, it makes a whole hell of a lot more difference, because then you can actually tell a story together.
right? The NFW channel, Ron John, Jason Walker, whoever you want to call it, behind it, says, I will make the creek rise.
Oh no, that's definitely anarchy because he wants to get fucked up.
All right, let's get into the highlights here real quick. Hopefully everybody sees it. If there's any issues, just let me know, guys.
Protest line, freedom scribbled on your side. Headline, New York Times, standing on the edge of a revolution. Hey, just obey the secret safe with the NSA. God we trust, or the CIA, standing on the edge of a revolution.
Oh, we're jumping a little ahead there.
Oops.
All right, so I'm into that match, and with that, I'm going back and forth here, so give me just a moment. All right. Since a video file decided it didn't want to cooperate with me. Got this one up too. So this is the end of the match. And I just have to play this little clip that you mentioned here.
Awesome show, respect. I hit my damn music. We have just witnessed. Welcome back, BTM. We have just seen. Big top mic. Here's that slowest to lose at his time. You Haley, baby boy, this is for all you around the world. No matter what day it is, what time, what the last, I always deliver. And it's always wait for it. Wait for it. Big time. Hey, bang. Boom. That was one of the greatest matches that I have ever called in my broadcasting career.
You got to play this too.
Well, there's Chico. How you doing? Oh, what's up, Jack? So you're playing Diablo, Trailer Park Brawl. Yeah. I don't know if he's been showing up, but it's been missing for a while. I don't know where he's at. I've seen all these weird little videos on the BTW actually. So I don't know what's up, but that's what I'll tell you. Diablo, he's not necessarily somebody I faced him before and didn't really turn my best with him. Well, I mean, I heard you a decent. Yeah, that's what you do. I mean, he used to be a little bitch, but saw him on a trailer park the other day. I think I'm worried. I'm sure he Diablo, I've never seen him stipulation why like this. Anything, literally anything. He's messed up. Like just snap. So if I were you, well, maybe I'll just understand. Yeah, try. Take it easy.
So that I felt was kind of a good setup towards their two matches that we'll get into eventually here from that night. But what did you take out of that match with Drew Hood and the end of it, and of course the little promo we kind of seen you give at the end there?
Yeah, I mean, I was fired up, as you can tell, after the match. I was always fired up after every match because I loved what I did. It was a physical match, man, and the best part of the match, well, one of the funniest parts, I would say that the highlight cut out was when I broke Avery's fan. You probably heard the story.
You broke the damn fan, Mike.
Yeah, I did. I broke the damn fan, and I felt terrible because Avery's such a nice guy, and like he let us sleep in his building, and now I felt terrible. I actually went and bought him a new one, but yeah, I broke his fan. I think Drew had me in something, and I grabbed the fan and started smacking him with it, just out of like just trying to ad lib because I was in the middle of a submission hold and I needed something to break it. So yeah, I broke his fan, and yeah, man, that match was physical, and as you can tell, we didn't do a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, we did some physical stuff, but it wasn't like the pure athleticism that you see today and what you saw in some of the other best in yard matches, and what you'll see at, of course, a lot of the other ones, 2, 3, and 4, and of course this next one coming up, number 5. But it was physical, and that's the kind of wrestling that Drew and I really we leaned towards. But it was also entertaining, right? We were telling a story, right? That this is kind of Big Time Mike's return match. He's kind of coming back onto the scene. He hasn't really been there. We haven't seen him since KBW. It's been almost a year. Is he able to do it, or is he really just all talk, right? And I think we were able to show that with the way we paced the match and kind of my comeback there at the end in the ring, and like the biggest, I guess you say the biggest knock on me is that I've never, like, most of my matches happen outside of the ring, but where did I win the match? I won the match in the ring with the submission hold, like Drew passes out, right? So I think it does a great job highlighting Drew's ability to work with anybody. It also highlights Drew's his physicality, right? I don't think anybody had seen Drew, and I think after that match, I think maybe it was Nick Ecstatic that said, I've never seen Drew wrestle in a match that physical. And to be fair, I don't think any of them had ever seen a match that physical before, right? Because the style that I wrestled, I brought a level of physicality that none of them had ever seen, right? And it ended up biting me in the butt towards the end of my career because I almost got too physical with people, right? But it highlights Drew's ability to be physical, but also work with somebody that he's never worked with. That just shows how great of a worker he is, right? And now Drew's in the best shape of his life, and he's wrestling on the independent scene, and he takes that same skill set he learned in BYW, like working on the job, and puts that in the ring. But I mean, ultimately for Big Time Mike, what this does is this is, hey, I'm still here, and I'm ready to make a run at this thing we call BYW. Right. So, and the promo at the end was really just to garner sympathy. Right. If you'll notice, I said I had my newfound baby boy. In fact, my fiance and I were not pregnant with a child. Right. It was just a way for us to garner sympathy. Right. As a baby face, because I was a baby face. Right. But this is not something that I just I wrote. This is something that just popped in my head. Right. Because that's just how my mind works. Right. All those Big Time Mike promos, I never wrote anything down. It was always just me, repetition. Well, what if I sound like this? What if I do this? What if I make my voice this way? What if I crescendo at this point? Right. And it was just me taking the time to study it and just working in the mirror. Right. You hear all the old pros on podcasts say, well, how do you do a promo? Well, you practice in the mirror. Well, that's what I did. Right. And I ended up being pretty decent at them. So what I got from that, it was just an excellent way to kick off Best in the Yard, set the tone for the show too. Right. I mean, everything after that is great. I mean, if you have a really crappy opener, the rest of the show is kind of meh. But if you start it off, you fire the people up as soon as the show starts off, they're in for a treat for the rest of the show. So
true. We're going to go one by one for these matches, but we're mostly going to do highlights for several matches here without any promos now. All right. You guys see that on the screen?
Yes, I see the dark. It was, I guess, the video player. Yeah, I see it.
That's not supposed to be dark. Let's see if we can get it to pop up here.
There it is. I see it. Avery and the Winnipeg Warrior.
Back it up just a smidget.
I just watched this one yesterday. Oh, man.
I haven't seen this in years. This is great.
So we're going to end up with that. And now we'll jump into the next match. Here we go, Savoy Pass. Anything you want to put in there from that match, or we just jump through and then you can mention it afterwards?
We just one quick thing. I mean, Winnipeg Warrior. I mean, everyone should know that's Everett Creed's creation. I think it was Cameron Jackson and Everett Creed kind of created it together. But what made him was his theme song, right? All Canadian Boy, sung by Cameron Jackson, right? But Everett did a great job with that character. He was so funny and goofy the way he moved around the ring. I loved the damn when he would like buzz his feet and like do the knee chop. That that made me laugh every time he did that. But yeah, great job, and Avery and always great character as far as keeping the fans interested and making him root for him and getting sympathy from the fans. And I think Winnipeg Warrior was the perfect guy to work with Avery because it's not something too serious, but it's something where you can just get people to feel good. This America versus Canada thing. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was hilarious.
It was a fun flag match, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Flag versus match or whatever.
Yeah.
Match.
And flag versus mask.
Yes. All right. So this one, of course, is a ladder match for a championship. Mr. Awesome, you gave it to me the other. Patriotic, yes, the Patriotic Championship.
Yeah. I forgot that it was for a championship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we will dive more into that one here in a minute too.
Yeah,
but definitely Aaron and Kevin, I felt like had a pretty good match there. It was the first time I believe a lot of people probably had seen much of Kevin outside of CCW at that point in time. So
it was the first time I'd met Kevin on Hangouts, but the first time I met him in person, and the first time I'd ever seen any of his stuff. I don't think I'd ever seen any of his CCW stuff, but I'm still friends with Kevin to this day. Like I told you earlier, I talked to him a couple weeks ago. Great guy. But yeah, it was a pretty good match. And what's interesting is I believe we filmed all these matches in order. I think we started, my match was first, mine and Drew's match was first, and then we built it from there. So we filmed all these matches in order. So it was interesting to have your match, sit down and be a fan for everyone else's match. And that was great. And Aaron's always been great at what he does, and he's changed his style over the years. All right. Mm-hmm. And of course I keep going back to this physicality thing, but of course it's like, cause that's like the bread and butter of what I did was this physicality. But I think what made Aaron such a great character as the people got to know him was that he got more physical. And of course they played up the Kimura where he breaks Kevin's arm. Right. And then that was great because, you see that on TV, but did we ever have an angle with it in BYW? Right. And I think they could have taken that as far as they wanted to, but it was a good match, especially for a ladder match, because I had a ladder match and it wasn't that good. Right. But their ladder match is better than mine. I think I was actually wrestling Kevin in that ladder match, if I remember correctly. Right. But yeah, I'm not made for a ladder match, but they pulled it off. So kudos to them.
Yeah, and of course that would lead to, I'm not going to play the promo from it, but later on in the show, Kevin would offer Aaron a contract for VTW as well.
Yeah, I remember
the rest of the day is history.
Absolutely.
All right. Back this up just a couple seconds. The Trailer Park Brawl.
Streets, common thieves, when they get caught, they all go free. A brand new yacht and a brand new street, standing on the edge of a revolution. Same shit, different day. Can't keep red if I can't get paid. We'll all be dead if the shit don't change. Standing on the edge of a revolution. Yeah, we're standing on the edge of a revolution.
Okay, so I know I kind of did two matches there, kind of on purpose a little bit. Yeah. What did you think of the Trailer Park Brawl that we've seen between Dirty DeChico and Dante, or whatever they were calling him at that point in time? I know he's gone through a couple.
I think he was Diablo at this point. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I was actually there to help film it, and it was great, man. We just pulled up to this random dirt road. I think maybe Zach Daniels took us there. It was some dirt road somewhere close to where he lived, and they got out and they just they talked a little bit and then they started filming it, and it was great, man. It was physical, and that just shows you, like, if you go back the drop kick that Dirty executed, man, he's an athlete, big dude, right? But he's so athletic that he can pull off. I could not have pulled off that drop kick, right? But Dirty did, and he's physical, and there's just a fight, man. You got to have a good old fashioned fight like that, especially with those two characters, right? And it was something that people had wanted to see, especially with Dirty DeChico, right? Being at this point, he's a rising star in UWE at this point in his career, and then of course he's going to come to be a megastar, right? Yeah. He's one of the only guys that I've heard a legitimate, like they talk about pops in wrestling. He's one of the only guys that I've heard a legitimate pop from people in the crowd at a backyard wrestling event. Right? From this point on, whenever he had the "I Live by the Gun" music, whenever you heard the drums beat, you could just hear people in the crowd getting fired up. And when he came out of the curtain, they explode like they've seen like Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's like the glass shattering. But no one else. I never got that reaction, right?
Yeah.
But he did, because that's just the kind of, the character is so magnifying, right? Dirty DeChico is like a mythical, right? And he's just like a gunslinger, literally. So I enjoy the match. It's very, very brutal, and I love a physical match. It was physical, and it kind of left the door open for another match, right? So they didn't leave it, they didn't completely shut the door on it. They left it open a little bit. The Battle Royal, I don't really remember much from that match.
I'll run you through it. It was the Freaks Night Ball Gauntlet match.
Yes.
It started with Silencio and Joe Cool, which ended in a double pin.
Yeah.
Then you have Adnan and Kevin Chambers, with Adnan picking up the Duke. Adnan would then lose to Mephisto. And I think we all know who was under that mask.
Yeah, we know. We could have, and you could know who was under the Adnan mask too.
Yeah. Mephisto would lose to Anonymous, and then at the end, you see Anonymous and Lips. Anonymous gets distracted by the music of Drew Hood, leading to Lips planting the kiss and getting the victory with Little Death.
Yes, I do remember the end. So I do remember the Anonymous stuff, the Lips stuff, and the Adnan stuff kind of comes back. But I just remember how much time that Everett put in to get that get up going. Like, Anonymous was pretty simple for Corey. Like, he puts the pants and the shirt, and then the suit, and then his mask. But like, Everett would like go all out. He's, again, kind of like the Gold Dust of BYW, but not even the same character, right? It's a different type of character. But he just went all out with the outfit, the attire, the face paint, the character work, the facial expressions. It was great, man. And I loved my program with Lips. Right, even though it was short lived, right? It was just a lot of fun to work with Everett, because he's so creative and he's good at just the little things that a lot of people don't do. So it was a lot of fun.
It was still a special feud watching you and Lips. So
yeah, something
people will remember. NFW channel says the Anonymous at WrestleCon was the death of Anonymous.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. That was the wedding scene. God, the wedding scene was great. That's probably one of my top 5 favorite things I've ever done in backyard wrestling. Like, if someone puts like a highlight clip of my life, I hope they put that in there, because that is just amazing.
Mr. Awesome, hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Oh man, Mike, even if you don't have a daughter, you walked your daughter down the aisle anyways. Let's see. I think we might have been in a hangout or something. It was Cam, Drew. We were all in there, and we were watching it. And Cam said, "He said we single-handedly killed the business in one scene. We just completely destroyed our legitimacy. Everything we worked for, we completely destroyed it with this one promo. But it was great, though. It was awesome."
That it was. That's still something that I remember to this day, and don't think about it. That wedding.
Yeah. Oh man.
All right.
Like, everybody had their own part in that wedding. It's just.
I'm going to be honest with you. Again, I don't think we practiced that. I don't remember us I think we had to do 2 takes because somebody couldn't stop laughing. But I don't think we like assigned lines. We didn't we just kind of like roll with it. Like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And this is what the idea is. And we're going to do this. And someone said, well, Mike, it'd be hilarious if you walked, so-and-so down the aisle. And I was like, yeah, we need to do that. So it was great, man.
Right. Yep, it's up there. Good. Cool. Well, let's move on to the next match. And then I'll get to what NFW mentions here. Ron John.
following message.
And we'll get back to that one here in a little bit. But Zach Daniels and Daisy in a 2 out of 3 falls match that wasn't originally supposed to happen at Best in the Yard, we found out. It was supposed to be, I believe, TJ was either first or second that was supposed to face Zach. There was somebody else that was rumored.
I think it was. I want to say it was TJ and Rick. I think it was like it was TJ first, and then something happened. He couldn't come, and I think maybe they tried Rick or Nick Somas or something. I don't remember. I do remember TJ though, and we were trying to figure out what are we going to do with it, and we felt bad for Zach because Zach was a big part of BTW, and he would like kind of help plan all this, and we're like, well, what the heck is he going to do? Like we don't have a match for him. And then Cam said, well, I'll just bring Daisy, right? And and again, that's like a 2 out of 3 falls match. That was probably the most technically sound match on the night with all the great, the big high spots. But I mean, again, you got 2 guys that understand really what they're doing and what story they're trying to tell. And I think it was so poetic because the filming, it started raining at the very end of his match. So when the match was over, right, the last fall counted, it started raining. We had to like sprint inside so that way we didn't ruin the camera. But it was just poetic that he ended it the way they ended it, and the rain came down. But they did a great job, man. I think a lot of people enjoyed that match just because it was so technically sound, and they were so smooth too. Zach Daniels can work with anybody, right? And so can Cam. Cam could work with this stool I'm sitting on, right? So could Zach. They're just so good at that, and they can make that thing look good, right? And they're smooth workers, and that's what I loved about that match is that you could just sit and watch it, and just like you're watching sports. Right, you're just sitting there watching football and watching 2 guys just like they're dancing, right? But it looks like they're actually competing against each other, which is the whole point. So I enjoyed it, man. It was a lot of fun to watch.
For anybody who follows this channel, a couple weeks ago, I did repost that whole match on here. As I was watching it, it was my favorite match from Best in the Yard 1. That's why it's a little clip of it in the promo picture. Ron John mentions we did a dry run for the wedding. And we couldn't stop laughing, but we did it again, and it worked out.
That's right. I do remember that. I do remember that. Yeah. God, that was great.
So now we're going to go into the semi-main event, and then there's going to be at least one promo, if not a couple promos after that, before we get into the main event here. Mr. Awesome, you want to put anything in there, out there, from any of this?
I mean, going back into the show, addressing things again, I mean, retrospectively, hearing Kevin come out to Wiz Khalifa, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. We didn't
keeping it G, even back then.
That, man. God, I forgot that he used to enter out to that song, and then he changed it. Yeah, I remember that.
And Daisy and Zach, wow. Yeah, that's probably got to be one of my favorite matches from the first Best in the Yard.
2 great workers, man. They can get in there and they can go. I mean, they don't have to talk. I mean, they don't really have to talk. They just go in there and they just do their business, handle their business, and they can make it. You want to go crazy, they can go crazy. You want to keep it kind of toned down, keep it toned down, right? And Cam was one of those guys, and him and I, we had a long-standing tradition after Best in the Yard. The promo that you saw at the beginning of the show, Cam and I, the day before, we just like got in the ring and just wrestled each other for hours and hours and hours, and everyone else got tired, and we were just in there rolling around in the ring and outside, and we had like a hardcore, we called it the Singapore cane match, where we just beat each other to death. That's why I had all those marks on that cane I had in my hand. We just literally beat each other to death with these canes for like 2 hours, just wrestling, like rolling around in the dirt and like slamming each other and just no one was filming it. It was just us, wrestling just because we love to do it. And we continued that every single crossover. We'd always have some sort of like match, in front of everybody. It wasn't filmed, right? And because we loved to work with each other. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've heard some stories about those matches, those dark matches.
Yeah, the famous Best in the Yard crossover dark matches.
And the ones that weren't even matches, where it's like, Mike, how'd you get your abs all the way to your back?
Oh God, that's oh man, that's great. No, he said, what was it? We were talking about we were watching. We used to do this. We would sit in hangouts and we would find like old promos that we thought were funny, and we would just like watch them and laugh about them and say, oh, how could we incorporate that into BYW? And it was the old when DX made fun of the Nation, and they were making fun of Mark Henry and said, "How do you get your pecs to go all the way around your back like that?" And that was they would quite often we'd be like sitting in the hotel room or like at somebody's house after we were wrestled, and they can be like, "Mike, how you get your pecs to go all the way around your back like that, man?" And I would get up and like chop him, or that night after we wrestled, I vividly remember Drew getting like irate with us because we wouldn't shut up, we wouldn't stop laughing. Because Cam said he would lay down, he would just be like talking mess and talking shit or whatever, and he'd just be like, "Hey, Mike," and whatever he'd say, he'd be like, "I know you did a great job wrestling today, but do you think you could lose a couple pounds before the next show?" And I'd go over there and like I was hurting, so I'd like limp over there and hit him. And he's like, "What's wrong, Mike? You can't take a joke, but I bet you can take another order of those fries." Oh my God. And we would just go on. And Drew finally just said, like, he had enough because we went on for like hours. I mean, I'm literally telling you, we went on for hours. And he was like, "Can you please shut the fuck up or go outside? I'm trying to sleep." And after that, we just kind of calmed down. But I remember, and then I do remember Zach Daniels was laughing so hard because he was on the same mattress as Cam. He was laughing so hard that Cam was literally bouncing off the mattress. But man, that was a lot of fun. That was the night after. That was great.
Can't imagine hearing Drew Hood.
He was so mad. God, he was so mad.
Like, Drew's a nice guy, and then when you get him like stone face mad to where he has to say that, like,
Drew,
that needed to be on camera right there.
So Cam and I were one of those guys where we were used to not sleeping a lot, so we could sleep like 2 hours and be fine. Drew's one of those guys that needs, or he was, I don't know if he is anymore, but he used to need like 8 hours. He has to have his sleep, or else he's like a grouchy, angry person. And like we had wrestled all day, everyone was sore. We had stayed up, the night before. We had like got something to eat and came back, and we were just fired up. We were just glad to be around each other, and we just wouldn't shut up. And Drew wanted to go to bed, and like he had finally had enough and let us know. Yeah, it was funny.
Ron John does mention Daisy and Zach was definitely his pick of the original Best in the Yard as well.
Yeah, great match. Really great match.
So let's jump in. These two highlights are going to be a little bit longer, so just a little preparation for you. Mr. Awesome knows them quite well since he's the one that put these two videos together. But in between the two, we'll have a little break with a promo here.
Following message. This is an attack warning.
There's a certain self-supremacy in the UWE. And right now I'm giving Everett Creed the chance to be a part of this show. I'm going to offer a gift. That being this, a key to the crossover. Either take it or leave it.
Tyler Storm has definitely proven himself a very worthy competitor. Not only does he have to worry about Mania, Zach Daniels, and possibly Static, he also has to worry about Everett Creed.
Why did Tyler Storm challenge me at Best in the Yard? Because he wants to make an impact.
This is you! This is everything you represent!
That's right. Your legacy is nothing. Not a single damn thing. What is my legacy, however? My legacy is creating the best backyard wrestling federation in the world. And ever since Ultimate Redemption, I have been the CEO for the UWE. Reasons being because the board of directors saw me for something that I truly am. A dynasty. The UWE couldn't survive without a tyrant's hand. And they saw that in me.
After I'm done with you, and after I leave you laying
breathless in that ring, then and only then will you know, Everett, that the storm has came over you and blown away your empire.
There is one man standing, and it's not you. It's not you at all, Tyler Storm. I am the only man standing in your mind because I am the only thing on your mind, Tyler Storm. And the storm's coming. The storm is ahead. But it's not your storm, Tyler. Your storm's over.
What have you been thinking about?
How am I going to run the UW?
How am I going to please my loving girlfriend, Angie?
This storm is coming to you. At best in the yard, you will be facing me in a last man standing match.
I will be going into the night. Live in fear.
And when it's all said and done, and the 10 seconds are up, you will know that the supremacy is now before you.
Order and chaos. Storm has 10 seconds. 10 seconds to die.
Come on.
What the hell is Tyler Storm
Hit me.
doing?
Come on. Do all the stuff you said you were going to do. Come on. Do it, you son of a bitch. Do it.
I
Do
don't know
it.
what Tyler Storm.
You know you got yourself into? There's nothing. You're a little stooge.
This is one of the most talked about matches on Best in the Yard, and Tyler Storm refuses to go down. Oh my God, Creed slapping him in the face. And Tyler Storm is out enough.
I can feel the shadow creeping in my body. My heart beats slowing down. I won't take this world's abuse. I won't give up, I'll refuse. This is how it feels when you're bent and broken. This is how it feels when your dignity's stolen. And everything you love is leaving. You hold on to what you believe in.
The last thing I heard was you whispering away. And then I heard you.
Fans got a chair, and Storm Creed right into the chair. Creed is over by Tyler Storm's girlfriend. What the hell is he doing here? Oh, come on. Creed now taunting. Creed taunting. Oh! That's what Everett gets. Creed was taunting. Slashing Creed. And the crowd wants Creed humbled.
Looks like Storm's gonna do it.
Tyler Storm now looking for that camel cut. Camel clutch applied by Tyler Storm.
They can't keep
Better than that. Oh!
This is how it feels when you take your life back. This is how it feels when you finally fight back.
Tyler looking for it. Creed caught him. Creed caught Tyler Storm. Creed caught Tyler Storm. The Genesis device is locked in. It's got it. Look at the knee and look at Storm's head. Just being wrenched in agony and pain. One of the most devastating submission holds. And now, wait a minute, what is this? Creed now throwing Storm head first, right into the exposed turnbuckle. And now Creed now looking for Tyler. Creed, Creed slapping him in the face. And Storm returns the favor. And Creed hits him even harder. And Storm. Both men, they have it all. Creed with the low blow. Creed with the low blow. There's the night shade.
This is how it feels when you
He's in the corner wearing it down. Now Storm on the side kick there. Creed is down. And there's the thunderstorm. The Genesis device from the opening. Now stop. Creed just took a water from a fan. Creed just inconsiderate and took a water from the fan. Water. Now again. Look at this. Look at this. Are you kidding me? Storm looking for a thunderstorm. Creed.
You come to me with your poison and your misery. Oh, death, you come to sting with your poison and your misery.
Oh, God. Come on. Come on. No. Come on. Everett Creed's head is stuck inside that chair. This can not only win the match, Everett Creed that could have just been the end of this match and the end of Everett Creed's career. The thunderstorm. Creed's neck stuck in the chair, and Creed has not moved. Everett Creed has not moved. That's it. That was the end. And your winner, the World Heavyweight Champion, Tyler Storm. Everett Creed may have a broken neck. Tyler Storm is ruthless. He is relentless. Everett Creed has
So, in that match, you kind of have all three companies involved a little bit in that. And I get some comments there.
Yeah.
Find that a little funny, do you, Mr. Awesome, at the end?
He's got a family. Jesus Christ.
One of the many Easter eggs of Best in the Yard.
I think that highlight pretty much shows you a couple of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I enjoyed the match, man. I think Everett Creed for sure is one of my favorite characters that I like. It's still like if I want to go watch old backyard wrestling, I don't watch my stuff. I usually watch UWE because I love whatever Creed's on the screen, whether it's a managerial role or whether he's a babyface or heel. Obviously, like him best as a heel. I love his character work, man, because he was so good. And then one of the main things we said was like Cam and I, every time we'd always break down the show and think what we like, what we dislike. Cam, Drew, and I would always say like Everett, whatever he does, he doesn't do. He's great at his character work, and he knows who his character is, and he knows what he wants. And that's a thing that a lot of people that tried and do character work don't do. They don't really know where they're going. Everett knows exactly where he's going, right? And I think. And even though, like, at first I was like, last man standing match, like maybe the feud's personal, but is it really personal, right? But the way they worked it, like it wouldn't have been the way I worked it, but for their style, it fit them perfectly because both of those guys aren't really known as like physical, beat them up, pound them up, hardcore guys, but they were able to, especially with the curb stomp on the chair, it was physical enough and believable enough to know, oh, that's what brought him down. So, and I love Tyler's character work as Tyler Storm is underrated, right? Especially early on because he did some good stuff with that. And, of course, he does the Tyler Aiken stuff a lot soon after. But I enjoyed it, man. It was a lot of fun. It's probably one of my favorites on the show for sure.
Yeah, no offense to the Tyler Aiken character, but my favorite version of Tyler was Tyler Storm.
Tyler Storm, yeah.
That's time. Ron John mentions Tyler Storm doesn't even know how to play a piano, damn it. And ironic that Everett cut his promo in the Frontier.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. Yeah, I'm excited to see Everett Creed in in the new kind of the APW reboot, the new Frontier stuff. I'm excited to see it. Like I said, if there's one guy that I'm so upset that I never really got to work with, it was Everett. I never got to work with Charles, or Jason Walker in a long-term feud. I would have loved to do that, but Everett Creed was one of those guys I wanted to get in like a long-term, some story with him, right, with the Everett Creed character. That's one thing I wish I would have been able to do.
D'Lo Smith also says trampoline air IC. Yes, that's what Best in the Yard one was.
D'Lo, man, I hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well, man.
And Busta Boy says, yo.
Oh, Busta Boy. Another like dude is a great guy, and it's another one of those guys. I feel like if I talk to him tonight, I can pick back up where we left off. He's just a great guy, and he's always been so supportive. And I think I want to say there was like a point in time where we did like an angle together where we were trying to get heat with the FTC, and Busta Boy was like, "Hey, I want to help," and like he bought in. It was just another one of those guys that's just so supportive and not afraid to tell us, "Hey, man, I didn't like this. I didn't think this was very good. Here's why." But not in like a trying to tear you down way, trying to like in a way where he says, "Hey, I really enjoy this product, and this is what I think. If you want my opinion, I'll give it to you." So that's what I enjoyed about, especially guys like that.
Yeah, he's still that way when it comes to even pro wrestling with AEW and WWE, because him and I did a recording for a prediction show for AEW Revolution earlier today that will be up tomorrow morning on my Anchor.fm channel. So
awesome.
He definitely left his opinions out there as to that.
Yeah, that's what you got to do, though.
True. He does say, I remember that angle that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Bro was mad at that.
What'd you say?
I remember everybody was mad about that.
Yeah, man, that's my favorite part of being with the FCC is we were not afraid to make people mad, and boy, did we make people mad. We were good at doing that, especially even like people in our own friend group. We made people very angry with us. That was like our thing. We were character 24/7, and it kind of to an extent where it was just like maybe it was a little too much, but that's the way we were. We were never did anything halfway. We were always 110% with everything. So that was a lot of fun.
Right. So, where'd we go? Before I jump into what I was going to, Ron John says APW reboot. Come on, man. That shit hurt more than the pay cut Anarchy gave me last week.
I didn't mean any offense by it, Charles. I just forgot the name of the federation. That was my bad. I flubbed it up.
Interesting.
It's not the APW. That's another show I really enjoyed watching was APW. I hate that it ended, but man, I used to Charles and Everett, if they could ever work on a backyard, even if it's just not even a backyard wrestling show, they could work on a show together. Those two creative minds, they would put out some great content because I love watching those two when they run the show. I love the way APW used to pace their shows. It was a lot. That and UW were two of my favorite wrestling shows to watch. I like VTW, but sometimes VTW would get like it's just like the pacing's not very good. And even KBW, even though we had some good wrestling, my God, we were terrible at pacing the show. We did not know how to write a show out and edit it. And of course, that was partially our fault because we didn't actually invest money into editing equipment. And then KJ was doing all of it, and we were just showing up, But that's one thing I really enjoyed about UW and APW is they were very well paced shows, and they were just organized. I like watching organized content. I don't like watching stuff where I literally it feels like someone just jumbled it all up in a Windows movie editor and threw it on YouTube. Right? But that's what set their show apart. That's why it was so successful.
I would agree. So we're going to dive into a little promo here before we go into the main event. Busta Boy says it was good to see that trampoline era stuff again. Really helped rekindle that fire. Here's a little promo.
Wow. I worked the ankle one by one, hurrah, hurrah. I dumped the trash one by one, hurrah, hurrah. I walked through hoods, it's all around. I knocked the house and all the way down, hurrah, hurrah. I am a white guy one by one, hurrah, hurrah. Jaron Jackson is so black, hurrah, hurrah. He's got a fro, he can't compose. I know I am the big time, hurrah, hurrah.
Damn, it's my man, brother man with a massive plan coming. Cameron Jackson Entertainment. How you doing, my man?
Man, I'm doing good, man. And by the way, if you haven't heard, welcome to CA. That is Cameron Jackson Entertainment, your number one stop entertainment for your backyard wrestling fix. I'm the founder, chairman, and CEO. Your brother with massive plan, brother Cam. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great, but as you know, there's this epidemic going around. Say, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the greatest talk show in the world. It's the, wait for it, Big Time Talk Show. Wow. And I'm your host, the one and only man, like blowing and member that brings that big time here. Wait for it. The man with the stash that talks that big time trash. The man without the fro is still dropping them big time elbows. The trash talking regulator of hashtag Team Big Time. The Drew Hood Killer. The suplex store. Wait for it. Big Time Mike. And I'm doing great, superfluous, awesome, extravagant, amazing. Best in the art, man.
That's good, man. That's good. I just think the catchphrase is a little long. It's just, it strikes me as unconstitutional. As a 9, as a 10, as 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 20, man. But it's already doing you.
I see, and then the fact that you use the word as a 9 makes me believe that there could be a little bit of genetic disorder because you could be stupid, dumb, stuck, retarded, autistic, idiotic, Everett Creed, Corey Graves, Drew Hood. You could have too many X chromosomes. You could have Turner syndrome. You could have XY. Do you understand that? Do you understand the gravity of the situation?
I understand.
You can have Turner syndrome. You can have cleft lip. Jesus Christ. You can be the man without the fro that's still not dropping in big time elbows. You can be a man with the J's that's that big time gay. That's what you can be. You can be on the route that's walking with that big time gout. Feel me?
Like, no, I'm not any of that.
I said you could be. Could be.
But I'm comfy, hot, black, and strong. I'm a bicycle without a seat on it. I get gas, you know?
Damn.
That's just how I am.
You also like an unpaid electric, you fuck all kind of shit up, huh?
I'm like a double shot at Novocaine. I ain't really feeling it.
You're right. And you also like your mom. You're round, ugly, and you still ain't no fun. Jesus Christ.
You know what, Mike?
What?
Let me tell you something.
I'm listening. No matter what time
it is, I'm sorry, you know. I'm not gonna say stuff because regardless of what anybody else says, I enjoy your catchphrase. I just don't like when you're battling with me, Mike. We're
not battling. We're just having a conversation. We are having. You get that couple, Mike. We're conversation. It's a conversation. We're battling. And we dropping them all over the place. Don't you make me. Like Jordan today. Just hang on, Missy Brewer. Don't talk to me.
That ain't no conversation, Mike.
You know what? Cam? You know what? I got you. Cam, just remember, it doesn't matter what that is, what time, what's on the line, whether you're black, white, ever, green, or orange, it's always on.
Shut up! You stupid son! Bitch! Damn! Jesus! Welcome to the resistance, damn it! The supremacy is now before you! Eat, drink, fight, dirty, damn! Good God, Jack Daniels! Damn it! You know what, I gotta go calm down. Oh shit!
It doesn't matter what it is, what time, what's on the line, always on the air, it's always on. Wait for it! Wait for it! Big time, baby! Wow, only
Yeah, well,
there's no transition from that. It's just
you just see everybody in the background just watching this. They're like, what?
Man.
You guys, between the two of you, pulled out every single catchphrase.
And it doesn't surprise me. Like, it literally, I mean, this is like nightly conversations that Cam and I and Drew also several of us would have. We would just be like, what if we did a promo about this? Or what would happen if they interacted with this person? And we didn't even talk about it. We just said, hey, we want to film a promo? Sure. And there's a lot of stuff we did that no one filmed, that we were just having fun. Like, we had ideas and we just started going. And it's like, Cam's another one of those guys, right? It's just like me. Like, I used to say that Cam and I are like, we're both steak salesmen, but we sell different brands of steak. So we're selling very similar products, but we sell it in a different way, right? So Cam may come up to your car and sell it to you, and I may come up to your work and sell it to you, but we sell different types of steak. But we're both selling the same type of beef, right? It's always steak, but maybe his is his prime cut, maybe mine's like New York strip or something. All right, so we're both very similar in the way that we approach promos. We don't really think about it. We have an idea, and then we just kind of go with it. And if it's there, it's there. If it's not, then we cut it short. We try not to, make, something out of nothing. We try and always, if there's something there, then we go with it. But if there's nothing there, then we cut it and go to something else. That was one of those times we were just being creative and we just went with it, kept playing off each other, like I said. And somebody and you know what they're going to say. I mean, that's just from talking to each other for hours and hours on Hangouts. You know what they're going to say, and you know what's funny, like the whole the black coffee thing. I'm hot and black and strong, and then the bicycle seat. I'm like a bicycle seat. I get all up in your ass. That was something that we joked about on Hangouts. So we know each other, and it's easy for us to play off each other. So it was a lot of fun, and I think people enjoyed. They were entertained. That was their entertainment for the weekend, was seeing Cam and I just go back and forth with each other.
I believe it.
Yeah.
A big supporter of the channel and of BYW in general, the King of the Mountain himself, Navon McDonald's in the chat section now. Says, big time Mike, it's McDonald, playa. Man, I tell you, I miss having the honor of seeing you. I want you to know how thankful we all are, especially speaking for myself, for what you have done for the BYW community through the years. You're an OG trailblazer, brother. I wish I could have worked an angle with you still to this day. Shit talk about a story and match.
Yeah, man. Navon, I hope you're doing well, my friend. I miss you and I love you, brother. I hope you're doing well. I miss talking to you. I hate that we never got to work an angle, because that would have been a hell of a program. And that's another one. I mean, there's so many guys I probably forgot, but there's one of those guys that I wish I could have worked the program with, is Navon, because we could have just brought something different to the table that no one's ever seen. And Navon, another one of those guys, Navon's never met a stranger. I don't know if you know this, but Navon could like walk into a Chick-fil-A somewhere and talk to somebody for hours because he's so entertaining. But like, Navon isn't a gimmick. That's Navon McDonald, like turned up to 100. All right, so he's a great guy, and I enjoyed being able to spend some time with him at Best in the Yard 2 and Best in the Yard 3 and some of the other crossovers. He had invited me to King of the Yard. I wasn't able to go. But, man, I miss Navon. Navon, I hope you're doing well, man. Thank you, because you've done a lot for the business, too, as far as BYW goes. And I was just proud to be a part of it and proud to know you, man.
And we follow up with Lord. Would have been epic. Hope all is well. Sincerely, and great to see you do this retrospective, as Biddy 5, the last hurrah, is on its way this spring. God bless, my friend. Hashtag boom, biatch.
Great guy.
Of course, I can't do that justice, but still.
Yeah.
Ron John says, good Lord, it's the King of the Mountain.
Throwback, man.
Oh, yeah. All right. So I believe that leaves us with just 2 more clips here. The main event, and then we can't end the show without the promo that was cut at the end of Best in the Yard either.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that, too. I forgot about that. I'll tell you, memory it's been so long. I can't believe it's been like 6 years. It'll be 6 years in June. That's crazy to me.
Right.
That's insane. It's been almost 6 years.
This one's a little.
Man, it was a trip when we had to replay a lot of this stuff last year for NUW, because Creed and Graves, they went one-on-one all over again, and that's where it all started at, man.
Yeah. Mm.
If you didn't have that night, a lot of these things would not be happening.
You don't have Best in the Yard. There's probably a chance that maybe none of these crossovers happen.
Right. This one's going to be a little bit lengthier, but it was the main event, so what else would you expect from
Absolutely
that? So enjoy, guys.
on the edge of a revolution. Hey, just obey your secret safe with the NSA. God we trust or the CIA. Standing on the edge of a revolution. Yeah, we're standing on the edge of a we won't go away, 'cause we're not about to live in this mess. We don't want to hear another word you say, 'cause we know you're all depending on us. No, we can't turn back, we can't turn away, 'cause it's time we are relying on the lost. We won't lay down and accept this fate, 'cause we're standing on the edge of a revolution. Wall Street, common thieves, with me and God, they all go free. A brand new yacht in a fine industry, standing on the edge of a revolution. Shit, different day, can't keep fed if I can't get paid. We'll all be dead if the shit don't change, standing on the edge of a revolution. Yeah, we're standing on the edge of a revolution.
The first individual, Cam and Ecstatic, are gonna die. You don't need to speak 5 languages to understand that.
And the final point. Guess what? Here we go. These are my people.
Everything is legal. No disqualifications, no countouts.
Here's the question: who's going to be man enough to take the first punch?
That's a good question. Well, we know it's not going to be Corey Graves.
What's this?
Corey Graves.
I don't want
This
around. I want to see that you got to go out and really.
This whole.
Don't you agree? You got me feeling diamond rich. Nothing on this planet compares to it. Don't you agree? Don't you agree? Who needs to go to sleep when I got you next to me? All night, I'm riding with you. I know you got my back, and you know I got you.
We talking some teamwork?
Teamwork now on Graves. And now Ecstatic and Jackson teaming up on Graves, the biggest man of the match.
Got the bounce back?
Oh! You ain't got a choice. Come on.
Look at this, covered by Graves, covered by Graves.
Not letting that happen.
Working it off. That one did not work.
Felt this one up in the booth.
Don't wanna live another life, 'cause this one's pretty nice. Living it up. Who needs to go to sleep when I got you next to me? All night, I'm riding with you. I know you got my back, and you know I got you. So come on, come on, come on. Let's get physical. Lights out, follow the night.
It's that out. I don't know what the hell that was. Jackson's got the ring bell.
Oh, no.
Oh!
Ah!
Lowercase Ecstatics. Oh, Graves with the KO stick in there. Just heard the shot. God, you hear that kendo stick. That is doing just incredible damage. Oh! That hurts. I don't even know what that was.
It's his wrist tape.
I know you got my back, and you know I got you. So come on, come on, come on. Let's get physical.
Oh! Senton into back in this direction. Yeah, and now I think it's time for some Poet Spring. Listen to Sonny. Greenwood City Ghost Driver. Color, Graves. No. Oh my God, the Dream Bomb. Oh my God, that is the Grave Digger Power Bomb. Color. Back shot. Homicidal and genocide. Oh! He ain't that the fight. Broadway, all the streets I like. Neon. Yeah, well, this is not for the weak at heart. I can assure you that. Oh, we've seen this move before. It ain't pretty. Oh, it's that Harlem sidekick. Like a skate. Oh, there's the Dragon's Gate. Now that was an unlocked in. God, never mind. And now you better not. Graves. Oh! Down the stairs at the floor. Boy, Graves. That is not. Oh! Graves just didn't and now ecstatic feeling the burn. Oh! Graves just got it hard. Oh, look at this. One shot to the trash can later. Oh. Graves Jackson is looking to retaliate. Uh-oh. This is everybody get down. Both men are hit and both men are down. The Kamehameha. What? For all the attention you could gain, has anybody told you you've been bow down the sins of the fall?
Man, he bumped.
I forgot about that.
Oh my God! I think we'll be looking at these three are beating the life out of one another. And now they're just stuffing it in their faces like mashed potatoes. Damn, you hear the candlestick. That doesn't look fun at all. What the hell? Oh! A little dusty shade. Oh, come on, baby. Oh! Dusty Rhodes looking down with a smile on his face. Oh, no, not the static power surge. Oh my God, the static energy surge. The static energy surge connects. Think of changing your name. Oh no. Oh no, this doesn't look good for Corey Graves. Wait, no. Ecstatic with a splash. Jackson with a low tie. And Corey Graves is broken in half. Jackson back up on his feet. And now all he has to do is put Ecstatic down for the count of three. And now Ecstatic. Oh, good. God almighty. And now look at slammed Ecstatic into a fan.
I forgot about both of those.
Oh! Wake him up. That is cool. It's hot. Motion front high. No. You ain't. I can't fucking. Jackson just Hadouken punched the referee.
See, don't do this, Carolina. No!
You're right.
No, these don't end well. Don't flip. No! That's why you can't do that stuff.
Yeah, and now Cameron was looking for the count. He knocked down the referee. A half package, 180 pile driver. A half package, 180 pile driver. I have never seen anything like that in my life.
How does anybody continue after everything that has gone on?
That may be the case.
Can't get him over.
That's it right there. Will the submission do it? Will the submission put Graves away? Graves is down. His legs are broken. Wait a minute, Jackson.
Oh my God! You know what this means?
Cameron Jackson has won.
That means Cameron Jackson is best in the yard.
Cameron Jackson has baseball.
Cameron Jackson. But you cannot take away from Corey Graves' next status. That put on one hell of a fight too.
Absolutely. But Cameron Jackson has won.
Man, what a match.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
So I gotta say, first thing I'm gonna mention is just seeing it there. As much as I miss seeing Dirty DeChico wrestle, I just miss seeing him as a referee too, because he was so entertaining whenever he put on those stripes in UWE or anywhere else. I had to put that much out there.
No, absolutely, man. DeChico was such a great referee. He was, and that's like, so before the shows, we'd always say, well, who do I want to ref my match? I want Cam to ref it. I want Mike to ref it. And everyone would say, I want Antonio to ref my match because he's so good at, one, just being a referee and being an authority figure and being like a strong count, but also being entertaining because he's hilarious. Like, I think he used to have a shtick where he'd say, this is now it's now socially acceptable for you to quit. Do you want to quit? Do I need to call your mom? I don't know. He did something like that, and it was hilarious. Yeah. He was a great referee. And it was an awesome match, man. Watching that match live. And what's funny is that, like, so after these crossover events, for the most part, everyone kind of knew, like, the outcome of the matches. But for that one, nobody knew any of the outcomes, right? We had, like, a pretty good idea, but nobody knew who was going to win. So we didn't, like, share it with everybody. So seeing it, like, that was our actual reaction. And it was a fun time, a great match. And for me to see, like, one of my best friends in the world, Cam, go out there and kill it. I mean, all three of them killed it, but him really getting to win, it was awesome. It was awesome to watch.
Right. Busboy mentions that, man, I missed the Hadouken punch.
Yeah. That when the Hadouken met the Kamehameha, that was something we didn't like. We talked about it in the hangout, like, yeah, that's got to happen. We didn't think it would actually happen. When it did, it was pretty awesome.
Right. So you got a little physical in that match too.
I did. So I don't know if you saw it earlier, but when Zach Daniels came out in the Daisy match, he scared me out of my chair. And then, so they were leaning on me, and I don't remember. Maybe Nick hit me or something. And I don't know. I just reacted, and it turned out okay. It was supposed to be for comedy, and I guess it just like a natural reaction, Big time Mike sitting in the crowd watching a match. You got to know he's going to get involved in some way, right?
Definitely. The ending of that match was quite unique as well, when you have Corey hit his move on Cam, and then all of a sudden Corey's the one that goes flopping down and Cam out of nowhere with Black Toad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was the fun part about what Cam did was that he's so unique, right? And you never know what he's going to do, and when he does it, like it just works. It's just the way he carries himself and the way he executes it. It works, right? It doesn't really make much sense, but it works, right? And people love to see it.
Right. All right. Now, play the end of the show here, and then we'll get some final thoughts on this and maybe see what your best memories are from the other two Best in the Yards you were at. Once it plays, it goes.
And now, a great deal of respect. Great show of respect. Everyone wants them to show them Picard's flute. And look at that. Both men, ecstatic and Corey Graves shaking hands.
But I wanted to say all that. It sounded good on paper. I really think of you.
Oh! What? Oh my God!
I don't know if it's playing that
Big
way.
Time Mike! That's Mike! Big Time is in there! And he's taking the Corey Graves! Oh, what the hell is going on here? Big Time dropping an elbow! That's Storm! Tyler Storm is in there! And now Tyler Storm taking it to Corey Graves! And everybody's getting in there. Wait a minute! Drew Hood! Drew Hood's never key! What the hell? Drew Hood's limping. He's got a crutch.
Yeah, try and get this working right. There we go. So I know you guys are hearing it. You're just not seeing much of it.
Yeah, I can see some of it. It just kind of freezes up every once in a while.
I noticed that. Maybe. There we go. The sound will take a second.
Aaron Jones! Aaron Jones is in this. Everybody! Drew Hood! And now, wait a minute. What the hell's going on? Oh, wait a minute. Look at Creed now. Creed. Oh, my God, the elbow. Big Time. And the command fighter, Drew Hood and Creed. Both of them. Hey, Creed. What the hell is Creed? Oh, my God.
As it decides to pause up there. Maybe.
Give it to Corey Graves. Drop the crutch and extend his face.
Yeah, he did too.
He made it back. They whisked to Cameron Jackson. Fired your ass. Yeah, I know. Hey, look. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Remember that 12-ounce of beer? That $12 beer? I tell you. I'm out of breath, but. Oh my God! Every time it's a Chico on it now. Blackout! Technically clean. And the kendo sticks are dirty to Chico.
We're going on a trip on a favorite rocket ship.
Oh my God! Everything going on.
We're getting word that we
gotta fade to black.
We gotta.
Lady. I don't know what's going on now. Everybody in the ring, Creed kicking the crap out of Corey Graves.
Aaron Jones looking to luck.
Aaron Jones is beating the hell out of Tyler Storm and Big Time hits Jackson.
Well, we're getting word that we gotta go. Thank you for watching Best in the Yard. You'll hear us on UW programming.
This is Jack Thomas and Dale Pepper signing out.
I'll say it again. It doesn't matter what day it is, what time, or what's on the line. We always deliver. Do it with me, boys. And it's always wakeboard, big time, bang, bang, boom, bitch.
It's going to play a little bit in the background still there, the noise. But that was the gist of it. We got a little Tier 6 brawl, if you will, as everybody gets involved at the end of the show. And then, can't any other way.
Yeah, you got to end it how you started it, right?
Yep.
You gotta end it like you started it, man. That's like I said, it was something else, man. It was great to watch it, but you had to be there. Like the atmosphere is just like nothing else I've ever been a part of. Right. I mean, even Best in Yard 2 and 3, they were awesome shows, and it was a different feeling in of itself, but there's nothing like the first one. I mean, you could never recreate that. They always say, like, if you could bottle that and sell it, you'd be a millionaire. Because you just can't, right? It's just, you'll never have that experience again. The brawl, I really don't think I know we talked about the brawl, but we never talked about who was going to face who. So we just kind of went with it. And then you kind of tell we were like figuring out, well, where's everybody need to be? And Mike needs to be in the ring. Cause they did say, they want you to end the show with the catchphrase. So I guess that was, I was a hot commodity at that point in time. People wanted to hear the catchphrase all the time. So it was, that's how they wanted to end the show, and I'm glad I got to be a part of the beginning and the end. But man, like I said, it's ground. If I had to put it in one word, it's groundbreaking. Right, something new, something different. No one's ever seen it before. All right, and it kind of it's a ripple effect that sets off this crossover era with literally we did the Best in Yard show in June, and we came back in October to do Halloween Hangover and Thanksgiving Thunder and all those shows, and then we came back again and we came back together in the spring of that year to do WrestleCon, and we went to Best in Yard 2, and then other fall tapings, and then we came back for another crossover. They had a couple in New York, and then we came back for Best in Yard 3, and that was it. And that was my last one, right? But there's so many crossovers and so many things that we did. Nothing touches the first one, because it was just the first time we'd ever gotten together, and it was just us. It was nobody else, and we got to make our own decisions and do our own things, and we were in control of our destiny. The show was only going to be as good as we wanted it to be, and it turned out to be an awesome show.
Right. So there's this thing I've seen on social media. Some people questioning the effects of a kendo stick in wrestling. You've used one on yourself. You've had them used on you. You've used them on several others. What is your take on the effect of a kendo stick compared to, say, like a steel chair or said other weapons that can be used in wrestling?
Well, let me just tell you, if you've never actually been hit with a kendo stick as hard as someone can, you really don't know what you're talking about, because I'm just going to tell you, those things do not feel good. It's I equate it to when I was younger, my dad, whenever I was in trouble, he would spank me or beat me with a belt. And that's what, and I don't mean it like an abusive way. That's just like the family I was raised in. Like if I did talk back to my dad, he'd grab the belt and I wouldn't do it again, right? But that's what I would equate it to, is if when your dad got the belt, you knew you had messed up. And it hurts, man. It really does hurt. And like a steel chair is different, because unless you're crazy and you take one to the cranium like I did and you don't put your hands up, it hurts, but it's a different level of pain because it goes away very quickly. But the kendo stick, it lingers. It's almost like you're being whipped, and it's like a burning sensation. Oh, and by the way, that burning sensation turns into a scar. The only thing else I would equate it to is whenever Dirty DeChico smacked me across the back with a chain at Best in the Yard 2. That hurt pretty bad.
I would imagine.
I don't want to feel that again. That was terrible. That was awful.
Speaking of dirty, they kind of, Jack Thomas and Dale Peppers mentioned it there. I skipped past the little promo that you two had about the beers in the back, the show, which was kind of a lead-in towards your guys' match at Best in the Yard 2. Which one of the three matches that you had at Best in the Yard would you say maybe was your favorite program to work?
Oh man, that's a hard one. So God. So Best in the Yard 3 is always going to have a special place in my heart because it was my last one, and it was probably like my darkest. Well, I'd say like my darkest. It was probably the storytelling wise, it was my best storytelling match I had. I think it's probably one of my better ones as far as like is the first match you'd ever seen me have in a ring. And it was, as far as storytelling goes, I think it was one of the best stories told on that show. Right. And I don't normally toot my horn, but I think it, for as far as depth and brevity and emotional weight, I think it had the heaviest weight on the show. However, as much as I love Best in the Yard 1, I think my favorite program that I've ever done was the one I did with Dirty, because it was my heel turn. No one had ever like truly seen this like sadistic, but also kind of the chicken shit heel. No one had ever seen that for me, and that's my favorite program I've ever done at Best in the Yard. Besides my retirement, which is a completely different conversation, but as far as just nostalgia and like saying like, hey, if you think that Big Time Mike isn't good as a heel, go watch this, because that entire program, that leading up to it, the WrestleCon stuff, even before, it was written all over it. Big Time Mike's the big bad heel, and who's going to take him down, and nobody else could do that but Dirty DeChico. You can't put anybody else in that spot. You can't even put Cam Jackson in that spot, right? If I'd have had a match with Cam Jackson, people would have loved it, but they would have loved it for the fact that it was two entertainers going at each other. People loved that match because they wanted to see DeChico beat my face in, because I was just being so ridiculous. Right? I mean, I was being a dastardly heel. I was trying to get heat, right? But not in the way that you would think heat, right? The heat as far as like I'm questioning like his self-worth as a man and as a hero, right? He's going through that phase where he was what was the name of the character he was doing in UWE? I can't remember. I was just talking to Drew about this the other day. But he was going
Templar?
Templar, right? He was doing the Templar thing. And I was glad he was doing it because he felt like he wanted to do something else. But I'm like, man, we got to commit fully to this DeChico and Big Time thing, because if we don't, people aren't going to buy into it. And he did. He committed to it. And he was game for whatever. But that's by far my favorite as far as like the brutality of the match, the story. I think, and again, this is just me, just Big Time Mike, me saying toot my own horn, but I think Best in Yard 2, that one also had the as far as emotional weight goes, that one was the heaviest match on both of those cards. My match with Rick and my match with Dirty, but I put my match with Dirty up against any program because I think it was so well built, and with our promos we did back and forth. I don't know. I enjoyed it. It's my favorite one.
I'd agree with that. Buster Blaze says Best in the Yard 3, that I Quit match was the only match to ever make me genuinely cry.
I think it made a lot of people cry. It made me cry, and I was getting the taste beaten out of me.
And Ron John says Beers got Tyler Storm into trouble at Biddy 2. LOL, Mike and Jason had to talk Tyler down after he just had one beer.
Yeah, he did. My buddy Tyler was a lightweight. He did not. He was gone. One beer. I don't remember what he did. I can't remember, but I do know that he was acting ridiculous. There's something about a park, and then like he wanted to go meet some girls, and we were like, no, you're plastered after one beer, because Tyler weighs like 3 pounds. So a sip of alcohol and he's done. And God, I remember that too. We were all like sitting in the building, the locker room where we stayed, and we like kept all our stuff. And we had ordered like a bunch of Domino's pizza, and we were all sitting there just eating pizza and talking. And Tyler and Drew as well. Drew got plastered face drunk after Best in the Yard too. I mean, like I had never seen Drew that drunk in my entire life. He was plastered, but him and Tyler were just sitting there going back and forth. It was hilarious. But I vividly remember us eating pizza and just seeing like Drew and Tyler over there like bobbing around because they're plastered. But yeah, it was hilarious. Fun times. Fun times.
Right. Dust Boy comments, I think your heel turn was the best thing to happen to your character because it really made your character fresh and feel different.
Absolutely. I had debated for a while, like, I wanted to turn heel because like the babyface thing worked, but like, at some point you gotta turn a new page. I had done the anti-hero thing and I didn't want to do that because I just thought the ambivalence of an anti-hero is so overdone. So I said, I gotta really either be like this jagged edge babyface, or I need to be like a heel. And I was gonna turn heel at Best in the Yard or at WrestleCon, which is why we had the new music. And I kind of played the heel, even though I wasn't the heel. I played the heel in that match with Rick, and I did, and it ended up working out well for me. But that's why the music was different, because Cam and he was like, "When are you turning heel?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to do it at WrestleCon." He said, "Well, let me fix you new music because you got to have new music. You can't come out to that same stuff if you're not a babyface. So we fixed the new music, and so yeah, it was supposed to happen at WrestleCon, but I needed that heel turn because that like really, it like you said, it kind of breathed new life. It kind of gave me a second wind and gave me so much more to do because as a babyface, there's only so much you can do. Or I can only have the same kind of matches over and over again. Sure, I can try different opponents and this and that, but especially with the way Backyard Wrestling was at that time, there was not that many big heels at that point. Everyone was a babyface, or if everyone was a heel, they were this really dark, like I'm in the dark with half my face lit, and that's not a knock on anybody. It's just that was the type of character it was. It was like the Everett Creed heel, or they had the Tyler Storm heel, or the Jason Walker heel. Right, Big Time Mike heel was something completely different. Right, you'd seen Cameron Jackson heel, but again, right, you haven't seen me truly be a heel. And what I mean by a heel is like just a downright evil guy. Right, I mean I'm talking about accusing somebody of sexual assault and have them arrested for over a lie. Right, or just flat out saying like dastardly things, or like when I did with Paris Smith, the guy that I had tagged with it in KBW. You know, one of my buddies, he was like, "Hey, I want to be a part of the BYW." I said, "Oh, great! Can I chain you up and beat you for this promo?" And he's like, "Sure." Right, so nobody, no heel was doing things like that. So, but I did because I thought it would add something different to our match because everyone wanted to have like this jam up technical match, right? Which is great, but no one wants to tell an awesome story that really makes people believe. And I think we did that. I mean, even at the point, like when I stepped out of the curtain at Best in the Yard 2, one, I couldn't see because I painted over my glasses. And two, I was so amped up and ready to go. And I told them like before, I said, "Hey guys, when I come out of the curtain, I want you to boo me and throw all this trash at me." Right. Because I wanted to play up like, hey, you got this guy that nobody likes him. Like nobody likes him at all. And he's going against his hero and he hasn't gotten his, right. And he's saying the hero's not going to show up. And what happened? Drum beats and the curtain opens and here's the badass here to reclaim his throne. Right. And it ends up being, it ends up not being what people thought. Right. I think most people thought Dirty was going to beat me into oblivion and he didn't. Yeah. I mean, how did I win? I grabbed some random chick from the crowd and said, "If you don't quit, I'm going to break her neck." Right. And to me, like the best way that you get a heel over, what's the heel have to do? He has to break the rules where there's no rules in an I Quit match, but there are moral rules, right? Morality tells us that, well, I don't just grab people from the crowd and put them in. They're paid for the show. They're not a part of the show. Right. But if you just break that barrier down for people and pull them out, right now, people are like, "Oh shit." Right. He means business. And then this really tells you how invested people are in Dirty. Dirty surrenders. He has to get on it. He says, "I have to say I quit." So I ultimately humiliate him. And then my own tag team partner turns on me, which of course sets up for the turn at the end of the show. So I think that's why I think it was probably my favorite one because it just had so much depth to it.
Yeah, makes sense. Ron John mentions WrestleCon was a big turning point for a lot of people. Busted Boy half of WrestleCon says that WrestleCon bump you took. Oh my God, dude, that made me cringe.
Oh man, that was great.
When you took that finisher on the ramp, I legitimately just cringed and thought you had a concussion. If I'm not mistaken, I think you were handcuffed in that match too.
I was actually. So we did the. You'll see it's a big trend in my matches. We'll do like the build-up promo where I do something to someone, and then they'll end up like the retribution will come full circle. They'll do it to me. So like in the promo with Rick and I had the contract signing. I had taped his hands to the ring post, and he had to watch because the whole gimmick of the match with Rick was we had to take one move from someone's arsenal. Well, he took the BTA away from me. I couldn't use it, and I took the Superman punch away from him. Right, and so I made him watch as I put TJ in the BTA, and that was like his friend, his tag team partner. And so at the end of the match, I said, "Hey, we're gonna end this match. You're gonna take my hands behind my back, and you're gonna F5 me or Rio's rotation device me on the stage." And he looked at me and was like, "Are we?" I said, "Yeah, we're going to." And he said, "Okay." And we just went with it. So and my hands were taped. And the funny story, and Drew and I were talking about this the other day. So he picked me up and everything's fine. But then I'm looking down and I'm like, "Hey, I really don't have any way to catch myself. I'm going to break my nose." So I'm like, if you zoom in, you can see me. I'm like, "Rick, break the tape. Rick, break the tape." And he said, "Nope," and tossed me. And when I hit the ground, I was pulling so hard to get it undone that when I hit the ground, the tape broke and it knocked the wind out of me. And the rest is history. But yeah, it was not a lot of fun. It didn't feel good.
So was that your guys' planned finish to that match, or was there something else that you guys had?
No, we were even more crazy. We were going to go further than this. So he was supposed to hit me with the F5, right, or the Rio's rotation device, and then I was going to sell it He was gonna try and pick me up. It was gonna be low blow, and then I was going to lay him out, do something, and climb up to the top of a ladder, drop the big time elbow, pin him 1, 2, 3, then cut a promo on him and officially turn heel. But unfortunately, when Rick tossed me, because you know how brutal, I mean, you know how physical I am in matches. I don't pull punches, and Rick, he'd worked with physical guys like the Chico, but like I'm a different level because some would say I'm a little bit too stiff. Because I am. When I get into it, I don't pull punches. I don't go out there to hurt anybody, but I'm not there to make it. I wanted people to think I'm real. So I did. I went full steam, and so did he. And he kind of ran out of gas. So after he F5'd me, and I'm selling, he's over there by the street puking his guts up with KJ. And I look, and I'm like, how much time do we have left? And KJ's holding the camera. And KJ's like, dude, you're like 5 minutes over. Because we had time limits. Because we didn't want everyone to have a 30-minute time match. 30-minute time or 30-minute match. So we had to call it, and I think it ended up working well because it sets up our eventual round 2. So
right. I never asked anybody if that was you guys' planned finish or not. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, it was not the planned finish. I was supposed to climb to the top of the ladder and drop the big time elbow on him and win because I never actually won with that move. So it was supposed to be a first, but I think it ended up working out well.
Storyline wise, where we went from there, I would agree with that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Mr. Austin, you got anything you want to ask before we for one of my last questions here?
Well, I guess when it comes to Big Time Mike and Best in the Yard 1, looking back on it almost 6 years later, I mean, where were you 6 years ago? Mike, you were probably on something like this, were you not? You were on talk shows. You were when KBW wasn't around consistently. It was lifeless, and you wanted to do wrestling. You wanted to at least get a proper close, and maybe you felt at some point as the date grew closer, you probably thought Best in the Yard probably was going to be one of your last times being able to do it because KBW returning wasn't a guaranteed thing. So you had to really come with it. And I think Drew Hood, I think he pretty much knew well and good that he had to give you the opponent that you needed. As you can tell throughout the whole show of Best in the Yard. And that's kind of one of the reasons why when Tony asked for a guest on here, I said it has to be Big Time Mike. It has to be. Like, what has the show meant to him? And you could tell everybody kind of felt the same way. If you look back at the show, everybody's throwing them ankles. They're doing them ankle locks, throwing them elbows, throwing the suplex, big time, baby. Like, they know, and they embraced you. And I think Best in the Yard 1 for sure. I think you were the heart of that show. And when it comes down to your opponents, like you're mentioning Dirty, I guess the best way I can describe it is after seeing KBW, pretty much Cage and AK, they did the BEW thing and you probably felt left out. Now you had your own thing to do with Best in the Yard. If we had to describe it, when it comes to Drew Hood, Dirty, and Rick, how do you feel they benefited from working with Big Time Mike? How do you feel about your Best in the Yard opponents? It's the best way to say it.
Well, thank you for saying all that because they did that. They all embraced me like a family, which is why it all worked so well because we're like family. We loved each other like family and we fought each other like family. So that's why it all worked. And you hit it right on the head, right? The BEW thing, I did feel left out. I was like, man, I was there every day. You know, I did stuff. I came to KBW stuff and I wasn't on the card. I helped out. I stayed, well, I had to drive the longest distance. So I did feel left out. And then, of course, I had to learn, like it's not your time yet. You have to make your moment. And Best in the Yard was my moment. And I've said it a lot in like chat rooms and things like that. But I don't consider KBW, like, even though I love it so much and it's a part of my life, I don't consider KBW like, if I was thinking like Big Time Mike's home field, it's not KBW. Big Time Mike's home field is Best in the Yard because that's where the people got to know me from. And that's where like my introduction was. And that was my show, right? So whenever I'm not at Best in the Yard, it's like a road game to me. That's what I play it out like a road football game, like I'm in hostile territory and I have to have to put up this wall so people don't try and break it down, right? But Best in Yard wasn't like that. Best in Yard was like home field, right? And I felt like everything was going right, and nothing wrong could happen. But to your question, how did they each benefit from working with me? I think Drew benefited because if you look at the career path of Drew Hood, after this, Drew kind of carried he carried a chip on his shoulder, and two, he carried a level of physicality after that match that he didn't have before. So I don't think that I know when Drew was informed that we were going to have this match, he knew it was going to be physical. But he'll even tell you he didn't realize it was going to be as physical as it was. He didn't realize I was going to be bringing all the stuff I was bringing. Right? He had seen me work before, and I wasn't very physical in those matches. But when I came to Best in Yard, I came with the purpose to show everyone, like, hey, this is what I want to do, and I'm determined to be different from everybody here. But I want us to work together and compete and make something out of this. But I think Drew, it helped him as far as physicality goes and legitimacy, because now people say, well, oh, he lasted this long with Big Time Mike. Right now, when he faces another powerhouse, he's really not vulnerable anymore. Now he really is a super heavyweight. And then, of course, it starts with our bond as brothers. Anyway, we both care about each other on a personal level. But then it helps our character work together in the FTC, right? So it all plays together. And Dirty, another one of those guys. I wish he would have been able to. I wish I would have had another match with him. And I think if he would have stayed as Dirty to Chico and not done the Templar thing, I think it would have been a milestone, because he becomes UWE champion. I'll never forget the night he won the UWE championship. I believe it was Ultimate Redemption, and I think I was on the phone with Cam and Drew, and I think we kind of shed a tear when he came out at Ultimate Redemption not as Templar, but as Dirty to Chico. I was like, that guy, he's made it. That's like one of my favorite people in the entire world, right? But that doesn't happen unless, I don't think that happens. I want to say that happened after our match. I could be wrong, but I don't think that. Right. Yeah, I think it did happen after our match. But I don't think that happens unless you see Dirty get taken to the limit at Best in Yard. Fun fact, and maybe Dirty may not want me to share this, but I think I'm going to, because I think it'll really highlight the importance of this. After that match, me and Dirty sat there and cried in each other's arms like a bunch of 5-year-olds, right? Because we knew what we did was special, and like no one could replicate that, right? Dirty even though I think, and of course you see the common thread here, is I brought a level of physicality and legitimacy where people said, oh shit, this guy doesn't play. Right, you can't just go in there and we're not just going to toss each other around like children, right? It's gonna be a fight, and it's gonna be a story, right? And yes, you may win, right? But it's gonna take everything you got to beat him, right? So and that's the Dirty to a T. Now Rick was interesting because Rick was a great foil. Rick was a big guy like me, but he's much more athletic than I was. Rick wasn't the best talker, but people liked him because of just how athletic and how explosive he was, right? So when Rick and I got in the ring together, it's like two titans meeting, and we know, like, yeah, we've seen Rick do this athletic style of wrestling, kind of mesh with Smash Mouth, but has he ever faced someone that's really going to punch him in the teeth? And I think Dale Pepper said it best at WrestleCon. This is the first time we've ever seen Rick Rios show up, right? The first time you actually see pumped up, intense Rick Rios. It's not just, not that he wasn't ready to wrestle, but the fact that he was like fully locked in. You could see it in his eyes that he was fighting for his life. Right, and I think his character again got another level of legitimacy from facing Big Time Mike, and I think Big Time Mike did too. Because the more big names that you face, the more weight you have with the fans, especially with this the fan base we had. Because it wasn't like there was 100,000 people that were watching our show. It was like a couple hundred, a couple thousand, maybe on YouTube, right, with views. So we have the same people watching the show. If you've got a small crowd watching your show, you've got to be able to change stuff up for them. And being able to put me with these different powerhouses, especially at a big show like this where we make out a long, drawn-out emotional storyline, it helps keep people involved. So I think for all three of these guys, it helps legitimize them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just looking through the comment sections that Ron John mentions, I think Big Time held the East Coast group together after Biddy 3. A lot of problems rose, a lot of tensions between people. Things just weren't the same.
Yeah, it was. I'll never forget after I retired, I came back to do reunion that January, and it was just different, man. It's and like I remember the Facebook Messenger chat was like a big part of my life. I'd check it like all the time. That's why I had ran through so many phones, because it runs your battery down, the damn Facebook Messenger. But it was just like constantly, we were constantly talking to each other. And then after I retired, of course, Cam and Kevin and Drew came down that Labor Day. They came to my house and we had like a little family vacation together. I kept in contact with them, but I noticed that the chat got quieter and quieter and quieter until eventually, like, it got to the point where there was like nothing going on in there. And so it was it's just different, man. It's I hate to see it. I hated to see it because we were, not that I don't think we're not close now. I just think that, people grow up and they have different things they want to do and they have disagreements, and some people handle it in weird ways. And it's just the way life, the way life turns, I guess.
Yeah. Bust Boy mentioning Best in the Yard is no longer known as Best in the Yard. It's Mike in the Yard.
Oh, that's great.
So, my next part, what's your biggest hope, or what do you hope that people will take away from the Best in the Yard, all three of them that you were a part of, your involvement in them, in the shows in particular?
I hope that people, one, will take away just how passionate I was and still am. I don't wrestle anymore. I don't get to watch wrestling as much as I used to, but I'm still passionate about it. I mean, it was a huge part of my life, and I just wanted people to know that when I wrestled, whether it was the first match on the card, I was stuck in the middle of the card with little build or a lot of build. I gave everything I had, no matter what. No matter if I was working with Lips, no matter if I was working with Cam, whether I was working with Drew, whoever. I was always giving 100% effort, and I didn't phone it in. Right, that's one thing I was never going to do. I never wanted to get to the point where I felt like, God, I have to go to this crossover. Right, if I ever got to that point and it was time for me to hang it up. Right, and that's not why I hung it up. I hung it up because I was just moving on with my life, and there was a lot of things that I couldn't do because of wrestling. I couldn't finish college because I was too busy going to crossovers and staying up all night, talking wrestling versus doing my college work, if I want to be honest with you. So it took me an extended period of time to get done with my bachelor's degree and start my career. But I mean, I loved it so much I couldn't half-ass it, because that's just something that I love so much. I may still have them, but I would go in notebooks and I would book shows. I remember specifically when in 2015, we booked VTW from post Best in the Yard till like 2018, and we booked it, right? And Cam, Drew, and I sat and we wrote it down, and I think I still have it somewhere. And if I have it, I'll post it on Twitter. But we booked all these cards because we were so passionate about this, and we were like, well, how can we bring this crossover? How can we bring this group in? How can we bring this character in? I was passionate about what I did. And I also wanted people to know that just because you're not the most athletic person doesn't mean that you can't do something like this. Because I'll never forget, Cam and I were on a hangout one night, and someone, I want to say it was with Corey and I think maybe Thomas Payne from HBTW, and we said, why don't you do backyard wrestling anymore? And oh no, maybe it was Shavar Jackson, another HBTW guy, APW guy. I remember him saying, well, I'm not athletic enough. I'm not very big. And Cam and I said, you don't have to be. You don't have to be athletic or big. I said, you can find what works for you. He said, backyard wrestling is for everybody. Backyard wrestling is not for people that just love wrestling. It's for everybody to come together and work together. And that's the way I've always looked at it. You don't have to be the greatest talker. You don't have to be the greatest striker. You don't have to be the greatest grappler. You find what works for you, right? Backyard wrestling at the end of the day is about having fun and trying to put a great product out there. And you can have fun and take the product seriously. And I think that was a big point of contention with that, at least that East Coast group, was we started to toe the line of, are we just doing it because it's like a job now, or we have fun with it? Well, a lot of us, at least from my perspective, we were saying, well, the fun is doing a good job. The fun of doing this is that we do it. We put together an organized show that looks good, that sounds good, and it doesn't look like a bunch of guys that just, popped out of their trailers and decided to go beat each other up in front of a camera, right? It looks organized, and that's what we wanted, right? But what I want people to take from this is just the passion I had for this and the genuine love that I had for the guys that I worked with, because I love those guys, and I always will. They'll always hold a special place in my heart. And I hope it inspires someone that one day, you know, whatever you want to do in your life, you go take it. Right. One thing I loved about being Big Time Mike is not me, right, as a person. It's the complete opposite of me. I'm not a very loud person. I am now that I coach. Right? Just like Big Time Mike, except I'm coach Big Time now because I'm loud and I'm obnoxious and yell at people. Right. But I was a very quiet, reserved person, and Big Time Mike was the opposite. Big Time Mike was the things that pissed me off as a person. So I thought, well, if I bring that out, then that'll definitely get a reaction, and it did. Right? But I want people to see that you don't have to be great at something to love it. You can love it and be passionate and eventually work up to being great, right? But what comes to that is whatever you want to do in life, right, you go do it because you're passionate about it, not because someone told you to or because you think you'll be great at it, but because you're passionate about it. If you have passion about something, it'll always rise to the top. They say the cream rises to the top. Passion always beats talent every day of the week, and I've said that, and I will say that to the day I die. Hard work and passion will always beat out talent because I knew a lot of talented guys that did not have the passion and didn't work hard. They didn't show up to shows in shape. They showed up late, right? They didn't really care about working through, talking about bookings, talking through matches. They didn't care about hanging out with the guys, and it showed, right? But that's just my 2 cents. So that's what I would like people to get out of it is be passionate and work hard for something you're passionate about. Work hard at it, and you'll be great.
As my boy says, yeah, if you truly love something, it'll show in your work.
Absolutely.
I do want to address Best in the Yard 4 here real quick, though. You were originally supposed to be a part of that show with Cage and AK-47 versus Cam, Drew, and Kevin.
Yes.
What happened with that not being able to take place?
Well, it was a combination of me just not having the funds to go up there and do it. And also I was trying to finish my bachelor's degree. And again, I shot myself in the foot because I did the old, I'm retiring, I'm never coming back. And then we come back and Cam and Drew call me on the phone one night and they say, hey, Mike, look, I know you're retired, but we have this really great idea for an angle. And as soon as they said it, I knew exactly what they were talking about. And I said, yeah, I'm in. And you don't even know what the hell we're talking about. I said, yeah, I do. I said, you want to turn on me and you want to start a program for a match? They said, yeah, you do know. So as soon as they said it, I was in. But at that point in time, I just transferred to another college because I was trying to finish my degree. And it was at the point where I had to put, my education first and I just wasn't able to go. And it broke my heart because I'd put time into the feud and people wanted to see it. And especially Cam, Drew, and Kevin, and then Cage and AK, we had talked about it for months. What are we going to do with this match? This is going to be so great. People are eating this up. And then I couldn't go. So I feel like I disappointed them. And they don't hold it. They say they don't hold it against me. I wouldn't blame them if they did because I would hold it against me. But it just me not having my priorities straight. I wish I would have done the match, but I just couldn't do it. I wasn't able to make it. And it's very upsetting because I wasn't like that. I never like to be like that. If I tell someone I'm going to do something, I do it. And that was one of those times where I didn't live up to my promise. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that.
Fair enough. So all this is leading into this little Best in the Yard retrospective miniseries leading up to Best in the Yard 5, The Last Hurrah. Is there anything or anyone specific that you're hoping to see as part of that show?
I would like to see I'm hoping to see, obviously, Cam and Drew. I want to see what who Cam's going to be working with or what story they're going to be going for. I haven't seen any promos, so I guess I don't know if they're doing the promos or anymore, but usually this is about the time if you haven't there was a joke. We used to have jokes about this. This is usually the time where the folks that weren't putting their Best in the Yard promos out, if they don't put them out in the next few weeks, their match is not going to have some good build. Like we usually had tiers of build. Like usually if you're good at building it, you start Best in the Yard in December or November. All right, if you're okay, you're good, you start in January. If you're not very, I say you're not very good. If you're not really worried about it, then you start in March. Or if you're really not worried about it in your last minute, then you start in May, right? So we had tiers, but this is the point in time where generally if there's not any kind of promo putting out, I guess there won't be one. So I'm interested to see how the show's going to be. I don't know. I wonder if it's going to be just like a best of. So we're just going to have some new matches that we haven't seen or some old rematches maybe. I'd like to see Aaron work. I did see the main event of Best in Yard 4. I enjoyed it between him and Mr. Judgment. I did like that. I was glad to see that Aaron did get a main event because he deserved it for a long time. I want to see Everett work. I don't know if Everett's going to work, but I would like to see Everett Creed. Zach Daniels for sure. I got a feeling, I don't know, because I don't really know all who was there. I know some of the people that were there, but Dustin Reagan, I don't know if he still wrestles anymore, but it would be great if I saw him work, because he was another one of those guys that I was supposed to have a program with and I didn't because I couldn't make it. But he was a great guy to watch.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Tyler Aiken, Tyler Storm, whatever he is, I miss that guy. Really good friend. I hope he's doing well. Want to see him work. I hope Antonio or Dirty got to do something up there, because it wouldn't be Best in Yard without Dirty DeChico. Devon McDonald, of course. I would love to see Devon walk out. I know for a fact Novin was there because someone sent me a Snapchat of the Novin entrance. So I know
that too.
I know Novin was there, right? So I'm sure Devon was there as well. Really, I don't. Nick, Ecstatic. I hope Ecstatic got to work. I know he had gotten injured. I think Drew was telling me he had gotten injured or something and kind of took a step back from independent wrestling. But I hope he's there. I hope he's doing well. I can't wait if he's working to see him. I don't know if Jason Atlas is still wrestling, but another one of those guys, just Yankee. I think Yankee was there. Maybe not. I can't remember if they told me he was, but I'd like to see Yankee. Man, so I could name them off. I could just take a litany of people off I'd want to watch, right? Rick, God, I'd love to see Rick work, and TJ. Always fun to watch those guys. And, of course, I worked with Rick, so I love watching him wrestle. But, man, all those guys, man, I'd love to see all those guys there. I don't know all who made it, but I'm really looking forward to watching the show.
Right. Which will be eventually live streamed exclusively on the NUW channel.
Yeah, when is it? They didn't set a date, which tells me they haven't done a commentary for it.
No, not yet. But I guess, Mike, if you had to address it yourself, since you are known as, I said that you were the heart of Best in the Yard 1, but it seems like NFW seems to agree with a little bit of what I was saying. Big Time held the East Coast group together. So, Mike, if you're looked at as Daddy Big Time right now, what would you say to those that have held down the fort while you were in your absence? What would you have to say for those going on in the future?
Man, I say they're doing a great job. I mean, I don't really keep up with backyard wrestling anymore like I should. I know that's terrible. I sound like a jerk, right? But unfortunately, my schedule work from can to Cape. But I'm glad it's still alive, because obviously it is still alive, and that's a result of people that care about it and that say they want to take it to the next level. Because if people don't care about it, it's not gonna go anywhere. It would have died with whatever Best in the Yard 4, Best in the Yard 3. But obviously they care about it, and they've taken the time to nurture it and at least put the work in, for sure. Because I have seen some stuff and I like it, and it's changing, right? The times are changing and the style is changing, but it's still at the heart of it people that love to work together and they love wrestling, right? So that's never going to change about it. So I'm glad that the people that have stuck with it, the ones that really truly care about it, it's going to show, right? And the fact that you've kept it alive this long tells me that it's in good hands, and no one has to worry with it, right? And now it's up to, if I ever do decide to do something, maybe not on a wrestling level, maybe on like a character level, maybe I have to give back, right, and give back to those guys, because they're the ones that are holding the torch now. So thank you. That's what I have to say. Thank you, because this is very near and dear to me.
Nice. All right. So definitely it'll be interesting to see whereabouts it goes. As mentioned, we haven't seen any promo packages, haven't really seen any matches made for it yet. But I, for one, am looking forward to seeing what happened with Best in the Yard 5, the last hurrah.
Fun fact, I actually got invited to it, but it was such last minute notice that I couldn't go. Cam called me like at 10 o'clock at night. I thought somebody had died. He was like, I was asleep, and Haley, my fiance, said, "Who is that?" I was like, "Oh, it's Cam. Someone must be hurt or something." So I answered. I said, "Hello," and he was like, "Mike." "Yes, Cam." He said, "So we're doing this. We're doing this best like a last hurrah, like a get together, best in the R5. Are you in? And I said, well, before I could even get the words out of my mouth, he was like, look, I know you can't wrestle, but we want you to just host. Are you in? And I said, yeah, but when is it? And he was like, oh, it's whatever the date was. And it was like a week and a half away or 2 weeks away. Maybe it was late. Maybe it was my fault. I can't remember. But I couldn't make it because I was also coached JV basketball, and it was in the middle of our basketball season, so I wasn't able to go. So we had a game that Saturday. But I was invited. So if you want to blame somebody, you can blame me for my poor planning. But, yes, I was invited, and I hate I couldn't go because I had guys messaging me all weekend asking, I wish you were here. It wasn't the same without you. But, I mean, it's not just about me, right? It's about everybody being together. And it was awesome because the best in yard 3 we got the church, right? We got to rent out the church for it.
Yep.
Best in yard 4 was like in Claremont at the BTW arena, but they actually got a building, right, with a sound system and a place to do commentary. I don't know where they got it from. I would love to hear the story, but they have a building to film like the final of the last 2 Raw best in yard 5. So that tells me like it's a labor of love. Like people have put so much into this. Now it's become this big thing. So a lot of fun. I can't wait to see it.
Hey, you never know in production with Zoom and everything. You can always be a part of it in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
Just throwing it out there. I mean,
yeah.
Ron John says, Mike, I got a good angle.
See, he's trying to get me. He's going to get me. Watch, I'm going to be unemployed and back on YouTube in 2 months.
Hey, don't worry. Big Time Princess is going to throw your ass right on the couch, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Back to the couch you go. Another night.
Back to the doghouse.
No, but I think if anybody needs any tips for Best in the Yard 5, I think channel your inner Big Time Mike and get the story going.
Yep, stories where
take us on the last hurrah. Show us the path.
That's it. Stories where it's at. That's why I've always been a story guy and a character guy, right? Physical stuff is important, but if the story's not there, the people will never buy in. And if the people don't buy in, you're just 2 guys in tights yelling at each other. So,
true.
Yeah.
Very true. Got to have something of substance in there for the fans to be involved and interested in the story.
That's it.
Well, I think that just about puts a wrap on us. Mike, I do want to say thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to be here for this. You're the first person, as Mr. Awesome and I were talking, who was the first name that came up for this. And I was very happy to get you back on here. As we mentioned at the top of the show, it's been, 3.5 years since we've had you on here about. So it's been quite a while.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate this. I appreciate you having me on. It's one of these things I wish I could do these. I mean, I can. I have to just make time for it. I would love to do these things more often because I love taking a trip down memory lane. Sometimes I get on a kick and I'll sit and watch old BYW stuff for like 6 hours, and my Saturday will be gone when I'm supposed to be grading papers and doing lesson plans. Instead, I'm watching backyard wrestling. But it's, like I said, this is such a I'll never forget this period of my life from 2014 to 2017, 2018 because it's pivotal. Right? It's something I'll never forget, and it's holds a dear place in my heart. And it's those guys that are like brothers to me, and like I said, we pick it up right where we left off. I'd do anything for those guys. If they called me now and said, hey, I need you, I'm broken down on the side of the road, I'd hop in my truck and head up that way, right? So thank you for this because this was as much a treat for me as I hope it was for y'all.
It's very much a treat for me. Happy to have you. We'll get a chance to talk to you again.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I was going to do that, but I think
you about to play his music out?
Well, I think we're all feeling a little nostalgic with this today. So I think there's only one person that can end this show.
Oh, no.
I knew this was going to happen.
I got to have it, Mike. We got to have it.
I know it.
But
and remember,
don't make me do it, Rick. Don't make me.
Man, I'll tell you what. Yankee's the one who I died laughing. Yankee was making fun of me for my "Don't make me do it," And he'd be like, might get really close to the camera. He's like, don't make me do it, Rick. We laugh for hours and hours and hours and hours about that. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Thank you for being part of it. And just remember, it doesn't matter what day it is, what time, or what's on the line. Big Time Mike, Tony Talks Wrestling, and Mr. Awesome always deliver. And it's always big time, baby. Boom, biatch.